Hello, friends, and welcome back to the Snoozy Scientist, where we gently wander through the mysteries of science, one sleepy yawn at a time. Whether you're listening from the comfort of your bed, wrapped in a blanket, or floating in that dreamy space between waking and sleeping, this corner of calm has been made specially for you. Tonight, we're drifting softly into one of the strangest puzzles nature has ever written, the story of creatures that seem to bend and sometimes break the rules of life and death. Imagine a creature born before Shakespeare was alive, still swimming today in the silent depths of the Arctic, creatures that have been living for more than 400 years, and far from the cold in the warm seas of the Mediterranean. Another creature holds an even stranger ability to rewind its own existence. When age threatens to bring its story to a close, it simply folds back into youth and begins again. And buried beneath the sea floor, in the cold mud of the North Atlantic, lie other creatures that have endured longer than the Ming Dynasty, older than nations, older than memory itself. We measure our lives in fleeting decades, but these beings measure theirs in centuries, and some in millennia, outliving generations, empires, even civilizations. We call them immortal, though nature allows nothing to last forever. Yet they defy death in ways that stir something deep within us: curiosity, wonder, perhaps even envy. Scientists have been studying these creatures for decades to find how we can reverse aging in our own species. We've spent billions searching for ways to slow the march of time, yet nature has already solved it, quietly in creatures overlooked and often unseen. And so we're left with questions. How can these creatures live so long without aging? What is this strange phenomenon scientists call biological immortality? Could the secrets hidden in their bodies one day help us extend our own fragile lifespans? And perhaps most haunting of all, what does it mean to truly never die? Tonight, we'll wander softly into these questions, moving gently through the stories of creatures that slip through the grip of death, not in fantasy, but in the quiet, unshakable reality of biology. But before we begin, if you enjoy calm and soothing explorations like this one, filled with wonder, science, and the gentle unraveling of life's mysteries, I'd love it if you gave this video a gentle like and maybe tap subscribe. It helps more curious minds find their way to this peaceful little corner of the internet, and it lets the algorithm know that science and sleep go perfectly together. And if you'd be so kind, let me know in the comments, where are you winding down from tonight and what time is it there? It's always a joy to see how far across the world this little sleepy corner of science travels. Now, take a deep breath, let your shoulders soften, and let's begin. In the coldest reaches of the North Atlantic, far below the restless surface, where storms churn and waves crash against icy coasts, a shadow drifts silently through the water. It is massive, heavy-bodied, and unhurried, its pale eyes clouded with a misty film that gives it a ghost-like presence. This is the Greenland shark, a creature whose very existence stretches our imagination of time. While most animals live in cycles measured in years or decades, this shark glides through centuries. Some individuals alive today began their journey in the ocean before Isaac Newton was born, before the world had telescopes powerful enough to see the moons of Jupiter, before modern science had even taken root. They have witnessed the slow sweep of history without ever leaving their cold abyss. For a long time, no one truly understood just how old these sharks could be. They were mysterious beings, caught occasionally by fishermen in nets, but rarely studied, for they live in waters where humans seldom venture. It was only in recent years that scientists uncovered their astonishing lifespan through a method as elegant as it was surprising. By studying the proteins in the lens of the shark's eye, researchers found a way to peer backward in time. These proteins form in the womb and do not regenerate or change afterward. Locked within them is a record of the moment of birth, preserved like the rings inside an ancient tree. Using radiocarbon dating, a technique usually reserved for archaeology and geology, scientists discovered that many Greenland sharks had lived for over 4 centuries. One individual was estimated to be nearly 500 years old, making it the longest lived vertebrate known on Earth. How is such a thing possible? The answer lies in the deep cold. The Greenland shark inhabits waters that remain icy throughout the year, where temperatures sink close to freezing. In this frigid environment, its body has adapted to a pace of life almost too slow for us to imagine. Its metabolism is extraordinarily sluggish, burning energy at a fraction of the rate seen in other sharks. This slow ticking of its biological clock means its organs and tissues endure far less wear over time. Even its growth is measured in patience. A Greenland shark may add only a centimeter in length each year, stretching to sizes of 7 meters or more only after centuries have passed. In the deep ocean, where pressure is high and light scarce, time seems to loosen its grip. The shark's sluggishness is not a weakness. Instead, it is a key to survival. Living at such a slow rhythm allows it to thrive in a place where food is scarce. It feeds opportunistically, sometimes scavenging on the carcasses of seals or whales, sometimes preying on fish or squid. Its cloudy eyes are often infested with tiny parasites, leaving its vision poor, but in the dim darkness this hardly matters. It relies on other senses to guide it, following the faint traces of scent and vibration through waters that have remained unchanged for millennia. In many ways, the Greenland shark is a living fossil, not because it has stopped evolving, but because its lifespans are so immense that the passing of generations feels almost geological. A single shark may witness shifts in the ocean's currents, changes in climate, and even the disappearance of human civilizations on land, all within the span of its own lifetime. When we consider that some were born in the early 1600s and still swim today, the scale of their survival becomes almost overwhelming. They remind us that while our history feels vast to us, it is only a brief chapter against the backdrop of Earth's deeper story. Scientists continue to study these ancient fish, hoping to unlock more secrets hidden in their biology. Do their cells resist aging in ways ours cannot? How do their organs maintain function over centuries without faltering? And what lessons about longevity might we learn from their patient lives? Each discovery offers not just knowledge of a strange animal, but also a glimpse into the possibilities of life itself. The Greenland shark drifts on, unseen for the most part, in waters too cold and remote for human eyes. Yet it is there, as it has always been, carrying with it the quiet memory of centuries. As we look to understand how one species can stretch life across such vast spans of time, another waits in warmer seas, a tiny being with a trick even stranger than centuries of survival, for it can turn back its own clock and begin life anew. In the warm waters of the Mediterranean, among drifting plankton and schools of fish that shimmer like living silver, there exists a creature so small it can rest on the tip of a fingernail. At first glance, it appears fragile, almost ordinary, with its translucent bell and delicate tentacles trailing behind it like fine threads. Yet within its tiny body lies one of the most extraordinary secrets in the natural world. This jellyfish, known to science as Turritopsis dohrnii, is often called the immortal jellyfish, not because it is untouchable or indestructible, but because it can do something no other known animal can do. It can reverse the course of its life and start again. The life of a jellyfish begins quietly. Like most species, it starts as a larva that settles onto a hard surface, perhaps a rock or the hull of a ship, and grows into a polyp. From this stage, many small medusae, the form we recognize as a jellyfish, bud off and drift into the open sea. Normally, this adult stage is the final chapter, a period of reproduction, followed by decline. But for Turritopsis dohrnii, the story does not always end there. When faced with stress, injury, or even the natural approach of old age, it performs a trick that seems almost like magic. The adult body folds back into its earlier form, cells shifting and reorganizing until the jellyfish becomes a polyp once again. From there, it can bud off new medusae, essentially resetting its clock and beginning life anew. To biologists, this ability is a kind of biological immortality. It does not mean the jellyfish can never die. Predators still eat them. Disease or accidents can still bring an end. But unlike most living things, their cells are not locked into a single path from youth to old age. Instead, they retain the remarkable capacity to change direction, to undo the damage of time, and to restore themselves to an earlier state. The process is known as transdifferentiation, where one type of cell transforms directly into another. A muscle cell can become a nerve cell, or a reproductive cell can become part of the outer body, a flexibility that our own biology does not allow. For humans, cells are assigned roles that they cannot abandon. For the immortal jellyfish, the boundaries are far looser, and that looseness grants it the power to renew. The discovery of this ability has fascinated scientists for decades. It was first noticed in the late 20th century when researchers observed adult jellyfish reverting to polyps under stress. The more they studied, the more astonishing the process appeared. Here was a creature that did not just heal from damage, but actually reversed its development entirely, erasing the years written into its body. In theory, this cycle could repeat indefinitely, creating a lineage of jellyfish that never truly ends, a biological loop where the finish line folds back into the starting point. Yet, for all its wonder, studying this process in detail has proved deeply challenging. The jellyfish itself is small and delicate, rarely larger than a grain of rice. Keeping them alive in laboratory conditions is difficult, as they require precise water quality, careful feeding, and an environment that mimics the shifting balance of the sea. Even when they survive in captivity, coaxing them into their remarkable transformation is unpredictable. They do not simply revert on command. Stress, injury, and environmental triggers may spark the reset, but not in every individual and not in ways that can always be measured or controlled. Researchers must watch patiently, often for months, waiting for signs of change. Despite these hurdles, scientists continue to press forward, drawn by the possibility that the mechanisms within this jellyfish might offer insights into aging more broadly. Could the same principles of cellular flexibility one day help humans repair damaged tissues, or even slow the march of age? Could the genetic switches that allow a jellyfish to roll back its timeline be adapted in some distant future to extend our own? The questions remain unanswered, but the possibilities they open are vast. What is certain is that in the quiet waters of the Mediterranean, life has revealed one of its most haunting secrets. A creature so fragile that it can be eaten by nearly anything, yet so resilient that it can step backward in time and renew itself endlessly. It challenges our assumptions about life and its limits, reminding us that even among the smallest of beings, there are powers that rival our grandest dreams of immortality. And while this jellyfish drifts softly with the currents, carrying its secret through the tides, another tiny creature waits in laboratories and streams, one that shows no signs of aging at all, as if time itself were powerless against it. In quiet freshwater ponds, where reeds sway gently in the current and the surface ripples with the passing of dragonflies, there lives a creature so small and unassuming that it might be overlooked entirely. Slender, translucent, and rarely more than a few millimeters long, the Hydra appears delicate, even fragile, yet within its tiny body lies one of the most astonishing mysteries of biology, for this creature shows no signs of aging at all. The Hydra is a relative of jellyfish and corals, part of the same ancient lineage that has survived for hundreds of millions of years. Its body is little more than a tube crowned with a ring of tentacles, each lined with stinging cells that can paralyze tiny prey drifting past. With slow, graceful motions, the Hydra extends its tentacles to snare water fleas, larvae, or other small creatures, drawing them into its simple mouth. From the outside, this life seems ordinary, yet beneath the surface, its biology tells a story that almost sounds impossible. Unlike most animals, the Hydra's cells are in a state of constant renewal. Deep within its body, a reservoir of stem cells continuously divide and replace old or damaged tissue. Where other creatures experience the gradual accumulation of wear, the Hydra maintains a body that is forever replenished, as though time itself has little meaning. A muscle cell that begins to falter is swiftly replaced. A damaged tentacle can regrow in a matter of days. Even when cut into pieces, each fragment of Hydra has the potential to rebuild itself entirely. It is a body designed not to decline, but to begin again endlessly. This remarkable ability has long captured the attention of scientists. In the 20th century, biologists began studying Hydra in laboratories, curious about whether such constant cellular renewal truly granted them freedom from aging. The results were startling. Populations of Hydra kept in captivity, carefully fed and maintained, showed no increase in mortality over time. Unlike other species, where the risk of death rises with age, the Hydra's risk remained constant. Whether young or old, its chances of survival were the same. This phenomenon, called negligible senescence, suggested that Hydra might be effectively ageless. Some experiments ran for years, even decades, with Hydra living on without any detectable decline. Researchers began to realize that these creatures did not simply resist aging, they seemed to avoid it altogether. Their cells continued dividing with youthful vigor, their bodies showed no weakening, and their ability to reproduce remained steady. In practical terms, it meant that if spared from accidents, predators, or disease, a Hydra might live indefinitely. The mechanism behind this endless youth lies in its stem cells. In humans, stem cells are limited, and as we age, they become less capable of replacing damaged tissues. In the Hydra, however, the supply is abundant and tireless. Nearly every part of its body contains cells ready to transform into whatever is needed. This perpetual rebuilding ensures that no part of the Hydra ever becomes too old to function. It is not immune to death, but it does not follow the familiar arc of growth, maturity, decline, and aging that defines most lives. To scientists, Hydra serve as a window into what life might look like if aging were not inevitable. They are living symbols of a possibility that challenges our deepest assumptions. For humans, wrinkles and frailty are as natural as birth itself, but in Hydra, the passing of time leaves no trace. They remain as supple and responsive as the day they first attached themselves to a reed or a pebble at the bottom of a pond. The presence of such a creature raises profound questions. If aging is not a universal law, why do most species succumb to it? What evolutionary trade-offs have made immortality rare rather than common? For Hydra, endless youth comes at the cost of simplicity. They lack complex organs, sophisticated brains, or intricate bodies. Their survival strategy has been to focus not on building complexity, but on building renewal. In the still water of ponds and lakes, Hydra continue their quiet lives, tentacles drifting like strands of silk, bodies dividing and renewing in a cycle that does not end. They carry within them the keys to a kind of immortality that feels both alien and familiar, for it touches on the very dreams humanity has long held about conquering age. And while the Hydra floats unseen in its small world, another creature waits, one that carries its own secret power of regeneration, not in the hidden currents of ponds, but in the simple body of a worm that can rebuild itself again and again. In the shallow streams and quiet ponds of the world lives a creature that seems to carry the secret of rebirth within its fragile body. It is small and soft, no more than a ribbon of living tissue gliding across the glass of an aquarium or the bottom of a pool. At first glance, the Planarian flatworm does not appear extraordinary. Its body is simple, with a rounded head that carries two little eye spots, dark and cartoonish, giving it a strangely charming look. But this humble worm is among the most mysterious of living things, for it possesses a power that seems almost mythical. If cut into pieces, each fragment can grow into an entirely new worm. Imagine dividing one worm into 10 parts. Within days, tiny heads and tails begin to sprout. In time, each fragment becomes a complete individual, indistinguishable from the original. Scientists have repeated this experiment again and again, cutting worms into dozens, even hundreds of pieces, and watching each grow into a new body. It is as though the blueprint for the whole creature lies hidden in every part, ready to rebuild whenever it is called upon. The secret behind this remarkable power lies in the Planarian cells. While most animals keep a small supply of stem cells, the Planarian is filled with them. These stem cells are pluripotent, meaning they can become nearly any type of cell in the body. Muscle, skin, nerve, digestive tissue, even reproductive cells, all can be recreated from these versatile building blocks. At any moment, a flatworm can call upon this army of stem cells to repair damage, replace lost tissue, or rebuild entire organs. The process is so efficient that even tiny fragments, just slivers of the worm's body, can reconstruct the whole organism. This endless capacity for renewal has made the Planarian a subject of fascination in laboratories around the world. For more than a century, scientists have studied them, trying to understand the rules of regeneration. In the early days, researchers were simply astonished by what they saw. Cutting an animal into pieces and watching each piece become whole again seemed to defy every rule of life. But as tools improved, modern biology began to uncover the mechanisms behind this transformation. When a flatworm is injured, signals rush to the site of the wound. Stem cells gather there, dividing rapidly. Some of the cells form a mass called a blastema, a cluster that holds the potential for every kind of tissue. From this simple mass, a head or tail emerges. Nerve cells knit together into a brain and spinal cord. Muscle stretches and lengthens. A new digestive system takes shape. The tiny black eye spots reappear, watching once more. It is as though the worm carries a set of instructions within every cell, a map that allows it to redraw itself again and again. This map extends even to memory. In some experiments, flatworms trained to respond to light or to navigate a maze seem to retain their learned behaviors even after being cut in half and regrown. Although the science is still debated, such findings hint at the possibility that information, perhaps even memory, can survive the complete rebuilding of a brain. If true, it suggests that the worm's regenerative powers extend beyond the physical, preserving not just tissue, but the patterns of life itself. The implications for humans are profound. If we could unlock the secrets of the Planarian stem cells, we might one day regenerate damaged organs or repair spinal cord injuries. Diseases that destroy tissues, from heart failure to neurodegenerative conditions, might one day be treated with techniques inspired by these worms. Already, scientists study the genetic switches that control when a stem cell divides, what it becomes, and how it knows where to go. Each discovery brings us closer to understanding how regeneration works, not as a miracle, but as a biological process written into the DNA of a simple worm. For now, the Planarian continues its quiet life, gliding across leaves and stones, unaware of the hope it carries within its body. It has no sense of the mysteries it represents, no knowledge of the questions it raises about mortality and renewal. It simply exists, fragile yet resilient, breaking apart and becoming whole again whenever nature requires. And as it drifts through its watery world, another small creature waits, one that defies not just injury, but disease itself, thriving in underground colonies where age and cancer seem powerless to touch it. Beneath the dry soils of East Africa lies a world that few ever see. Narrow tunnels wind in every direction, carved through the earth by teeth and small claws, forming a maze that stretches for hundreds of meters below the surface. Within this hidden world lives one of nature's strangest mammals, the naked mole rat. With wrinkled, hairless skin and small beady eyes that barely function in the darkness, it is not a creature of beauty. Yet what it lacks in appearance, it more than makes up for in the secrets it carries within its body, secrets that set it apart from nearly every other mammal alive today. Most rodents, such as mice, live brief lives measured in only a handful of years. Their bodies wear out quickly, their cells accumulate damage, and they succumb to age or disease in what feels like a blink of time. The naked mole rat, however, rewrites this expectation. These small, fragile looking animals can live more than 30 years, nearly 10 times longer than a mouse of similar size. Their lives stretch across decades, rivaling those of far larger creatures, a feat so unusual that scientists once struggled to believe it could be real. One of the keys to their longevity lies in a remarkable resistance to cancer. In laboratory studies, scientists found that naked mole rats rarely, if ever, develop tumors. This discovery stunned researchers, for in almost every other mammal, cancer is a natural risk of life. Cells divide, and over time mistakes accumulate, mutations slip into the genetic code, and tumors form. In naked mole rats, however, this cycle seems almost completely halted. Their cells contain unusual protective mechanisms, including a substance called high molecular weight hyaluronan. This sugar like molecule forms a thick barrier around cells, preventing them from crowding too closely together. If a cell begins to divide uncontrollably, it is swiftly stopped, long before it becomes dangerous. In effect, the mole rat's body has built in defenses that prevent cancer before it ever begins. Their biology contains other surprises as well. They are able to tolerate extremely low levels of oxygen, surviving in conditions that would quickly kill most mammals. Within their crowded burrows, where air is stale and oxygen scarce, they switch to a metabolic pathway that allows their bodies to keep functioning even when oxygen nearly vanishes. It is as if they carry within them an emergency system, a backup that protects their organs when conditions become too harsh. This unusual flexibility helps explain not only their survival underground, but also their resistance to aging, since their bodies endure far less stress in low oxygen conditions than ours would. But perhaps just as extraordinary as their biology is the way they live together. Naked mole rats form colonies much like ants or bees, with a single queen who gives birth to nearly all the pups, and a cast of workers and soldiers that maintain the tunnels, gather food, and defend the group. This eusocial lifestyle is incredibly rare in mammals. It creates a society where cooperation is essential and where the success of the group matters more than the survival of any individual. Scientists believe this structure may contribute to their longevity. In a colony, each animal plays a role that ensures stability and reduces the risks of isolation or starvation. Their shared life underground protects them from predators and environmental stress, creating a safety that supports longer lives. The naked mole rat's body is also strangely resistant to pain. Their skin lacks certain chemical receptors that respond to the burn of acid or the sting of chili peppers, meaning they simply do not feel discomfort the way other animals do. In their underground world, where carbon dioxide levels run high and the atmosphere would irritate most creatures, this lack of pain is an adaptation that allows them to carry on unaffected. It also shields them from chronic inflammation, a process that in humans contributes heavily to aging and disease. All of these traits come together to create a mammal that seems almost outside the rules of its class. Small in size, with little need for oxygen, resistant to cancer, immune to many forms of pain, and bound together by one of the most unusual social systems in the animal kingdom. Naked mole rats stand as proof that longevity is not just about size or strength. It can also come from cooperation, from biology shaped by unique pressures, and from defenses written deep into the very structure of cells. In the dim corridors of their tunnels, these strange animals continue their lives in quiet obscurity, while scientists above ground study them in hopes of unlocking the mysteries of age and disease. Their bodies hold lessons that may one day inspire new treatments for cancer, for chronic pain, and for the diseases of old age. And as the mole rats go about their endless digging and chewing in the soil, other creatures in the sea grow stronger with each passing year, their bodies renewed not by defenses against tumors, but by an enzyme that keeps their cells youthful, long after most animals would have grown weak. In the cold waters of the North Atlantic, where rocky coastlines stretch into the sea and waves churn against hidden reefs, lobsters move with a slow and deliberate grace. Their heavy shells, armored with ridges and spines, protect bodies that seem built for endurance rather than speed. With claws large enough to crush shellfish and antennae sweeping across the sand like careful feelers, they are among the most iconic of marine animals. Yet behind their familiar form lies one of the most remarkable biological stories, for lobsters do not seem to grow weaker with age. Instead, they grow stronger. Most creatures begin life with vigor, then decline as years pass. Muscles lose strength, organs tire, and cells accumulate damage that can no longer be repaired. Lobsters appear to play by a different set of rules. Even as they grow older, they continue to molt, shedding their shells and replacing them with new armor. Each time they molt, their bodies grow larger and their reproductive strength increases rather than fades. A lobster that is several decades old may be not only bigger than its younger counterparts, but also more fertile, producing greater numbers of eggs and sperm. Unlike most animals, their peak does not come early in life, but continues to rise. The secret to this unusual vitality lies in an enzyme called telomerase. In humans and many other species, telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, shorten each time a cell divides. This gradual erosion contributes to aging, as cells lose their ability to function properly after too many divisions. Lobsters, however, have abundant telomerase in nearly all of their tissues. This enzyme continually repairs their telomeres, keeping their chromosomes intact and their cells youthful. In effect, their cells do not grow old in the same way ours do. They remain capable of dividing and renewing for far longer, maintaining tissues and organs with a kind of biological freshness that most creatures cannot sustain. This does not mean lobsters are truly immortal. Their lives are still bounded by the realities of the ocean. They face predators such as cod, monkfish, and even other lobsters. They are hunted by humans, who value them as one of the sea's most sought-after foods. They also face the growing difficulty of molting as they age. Each molt requires tremendous energy. The lobster must split its old shell and pull its massive body free, expanding quickly before the new shell hardens. For small lobsters, this process is demanding but manageable. For very large lobsters, weighing several kilograms, the task can become overwhelming. Some become trapped in their own shells, unable to complete the molt, and die as a result. Yet for those that succeed, age brings power rather than frailty. Enormous lobsters, decades old, have been found in the wild, their shells scarred from battles, their claws large enough to span a person's chest. They continue to hunt, to mate, and to defend their rocky territories with no sign of the weakness that defines aging in most animals. Some individuals have been estimated to live for over a century, their bodies carrying the strength and resilience of an animal still in its prime. The biology of lobsters has become a subject of fascination for scientists who hope to understand how telomerase functions so effectively in these animals. In humans, telomerase is mostly active during early development, and its decline is linked to aging. If researchers can uncover how lobsters use this enzyme throughout life without developing cancer, it may offer clues for slowing the cellular decline that defines human aging. For now, though, the lobster's secrets remain hidden in its armored shell and its silent life beneath the waves. As lobsters continue their slow journeys across the seabed, feeding on shellfish, sea urchins, and carrion, their existence offers a quiet reminder that aging is not the same for every species. Some grow old and fragile, while others, like the lobster, only grow stronger with time. And as they move with ancient patience through their underwater world, there are creatures far larger that share the ocean with them, beings whose immense size is matched by lifespans that stretch into centuries, carrying the memory of harpoons buried in their flesh since the days of wooden ships. Far to the north, in waters rimmed by drifting ice and touched only by the dim glow of Arctic light, lives a giant whose life stretches across centuries. The bowhead whale moves with steady power through seas that are frozen much of the year, its massive body wrapped in blubber, thick enough to withstand the coldest oceans on Earth. Unlike other whales that roam between tropical and polar seas, the bowhead remains in the Arctic year-round, a permanent resident of ice-filled waters. These conditions are harsh, yet within them, the bowhead has achieved one of the greatest feats of longevity among mammals, living for more than 2 centuries. Evidence of this extraordinary lifespan has come from surprising places. In the bodies of whales harvested by indigenous hunters, scientists found embedded harpoon tips made of stone and metal that dated back to the 1800s. These weapons had been launched by whalers long dead, yet the whales that carried them still swam on. The harpoons had scarred their flesh, but had not ended their lives. In some cases, the artifacts were more than a century old, proof that these animals had endured not only the dangers of the sea, but also encounters with human history itself. A single bowhead alive today may have witnessed generations of hunters come and go, may have heard the distant echoes of ships that once chased its kind across the Arctic. The bowhead's immense size is part of its survival, reaching lengths of over 15 meters and weighing more than 70 tons. Its body is one of the largest structures ever built by nature. Beneath its thick skin lies a layer of blubber that can be half a meter deep, storing energy and insulating against the cold. Its skull is massive, shaped to break through sea ice, allowing it to surface even where the Arctic waters freeze solid. Yet it is not size alone that grants the bowhead its longevity. Deep within its cells, hidden in the complexity of its DNA, lie clues to how it resists the diseases and breakdowns of age. Among all mammals studied so far, the bowhead whale holds the largest genome. Its genetic code contains unique sequences that appear to slow cellular damage, protect against cancer, and repair broken DNA. In humans, the slow accumulation of damage to DNA is a hallmark of aging, leading to diseases that shorten life. In bowheads, this process seems to be managed with remarkable efficiency. Genes linked to cell repair are unusually active. Protective mechanisms against uncontrolled cell growth are especially strong. Even proteins involved in maintaining healthy tissues are adapted in ways that seem to shield the whale from the gradual decline that defines most lives. This resistance to age-related disease is one reason bowheads can live to 200 years or more, continuing to reproduce and thrive long after most animals would have grown frail. Female bowheads have been known to give birth even at advanced ages, a feat almost unheard of in mammals of such size. Their bodies remain fertile and strong, carrying calves across decades, ensuring the survival of their species in a landscape that often seems too unforgiving to sustain life at all. The slow pace of their existence also plays a role. Bowheads move deliberately, conserving energy in waters where food can be scarce. They feed primarily on tiny organisms called copepods and krill, sweeping them up in great gulps as they glide with mouths open wide. Their lives unfold in rhythms tied to the ice, to migrations of prey, and to the shifting seasons of the far north. This steady pace means less strain on their bodies, less wear from the frantic demands that shorten the lives of smaller, faster animals. For scientists, the bowhead is more than a marvel of longevity. It is a model, a living example of how mammals might resist age itself. By studying its genome, researchers hope to find clues that could one day help humans live longer, healthier lives. How does the bowhead repair its cells so effectively? How does it prevent cancer over centuries of existence? What lessons can we draw from an animal that has quietly solved problems we are only beginning to understand? As the bowhead moves through its Arctic world, its presence is a reminder of time measured differently, not in years or decades, but in centuries. A single whale may have lived through revolutions, wars, and discoveries on land, while continuing its patient journey beneath the ice. And as these ancient giants glide through waters darkened by winter, they share the oceans with other beings of great age, creatures far smaller yet equally mysterious, hidden beneath the seabed and carrying lifespans that rival even the centuries of the bowhead. Beneath the restless surface of the North Atlantic, where waves roll endlessly and storms sweep across the horizon, lies a world of sand and mud that seems quiet and uneventful. Buried there, half hidden in the seabed, lives a creature with no movement to speak of, no eyes to watch the centuries pass, no voice to mark the rise and fall of civilizations. Yet in its silence, it holds one of the longest lifespans ever discovered in the animal kingdom. This is the ocean quahog, Arctica islandica, a clam so unassuming that it could be mistaken for any shell tossed ashore, and yet some individuals have lived for more than 500 years. The most famous of these was nicknamed Ming, because it was born in the year 1499, when the Ming dynasty ruled China, and when the world was still in the age of sails and empires. While human history moved from one revolution to the next, while inventions changed the way people lived and wars redrew the maps of nations, Ming rested in the mud of the seafloor, filtering plankton and drifting quietly through time. When scientists discovered it centuries later, they realized that this single clam had been alive through more human history than almost any other known creature. The way scientists uncover such vast lifespans is through the shells themselves. Like the rings of a tree, the shells of ocean quahogs grow in layers. Each year, a new band of calcium carbonate forms, thin and subtle but distinct under the careful lens of a microscope. By counting these bands, researchers can measure the years of a clam's life, stretching backward like a diary carved in stone. In the case of Ming, those bands revealed an age of 5 centuries, each ring a quiet tally of another winter survived, another season endured beneath the cold Atlantic waves. The secret of the clam's longevity lies in the environment it calls home. The waters of the North Atlantic are cold, often near freezing, and in such conditions life slows. Metabolism, the rate at which energy is burned and cells carry out their work, is far lower than in warmer seas. This slow pace reduces the damage that accumulates in cells over time. Oxygen, while essential for life, also produces reactive byproducts that can harm tissues. By living slowly, by stretching every heartbeat and every breath into long intervals, the clam minimizes this damage. Its organs wear at a fraction of the rate seen in faster living creatures, and the passing of time leaves only the faintest traces. This slow living extends beyond the body to the way the clam interacts with its environment. Ocean quahogs burrow into the seabed, sometimes several inches deep, where they remain for most of their lives. From there, they extend a siphon that pulls in seawater, filtering out microscopic plankton and organic particles. It is an existence of stillness, sustained by the smallest offerings of the sea. Predators do exist, such as starfish, crabs, and certain fish, but for those clams that escape early danger, the reward is time itself, stretching into centuries. What fascinates scientists is not only the length of their lives, but the resilience of their tissues. Studies on the cells of ocean quahogs show remarkable resistance to oxidative stress, one of the main drivers of aging in animals. Their proteins and membranes are less likely to break down under pressure, their cells more capable of maintaining function even after decades of use. In some individuals, signs of cellular damage appear to be delayed for centuries, suggesting that their biology contains built-in defenses against the passage of time. The shells of these clams tell more than personal stories of longevity. They record changes in ocean temperatures, salinity, and even the chemistry of the water over centuries. By studying growth patterns and chemical traces in the rings, scientists can reconstruct a history of the climate, using the clam as a natural archive of Earth's shifting seas. Ming and its kin are not just survivors, but record keepers of the planet itself. And so, buried in the quiet of the seabed, the ocean quahog continues its life in stillness. Each day is like the last. Each season passes with little notice, and yet the years accumulate in numbers so vast that human history feels fleeting beside them. From the time of dynasties to the rise of industry, from the first printing presses to the glow of digital screens, the clam remains where it has always been, carrying time in the fine rings of its shell. And while these small giants of longevity rest beneath the mud, on distant shores, another creature carries its age, not in silence, but in slow, deliberate steps, walking across islands with a shell upon its back that has witnessed nearly 2 centuries of change. On scattered islands where the air is warm and the landscape feels timeless, there live creatures that embody patience itself. They are enormous tortoises, moving slowly across rocky terrain or grazing in meadows of tall grass, their domed shells rising like weathered monuments. These giant tortoises are among the longest-lived animals on land, their lifespans stretching well beyond 150 years. Some individuals alive today were born before railroads crisscrossed continents, before electricity lit the first lamps in city streets, before many nations were even formed. To see one is to glimpse not just an animal, but a fragment of history carried forward on a living back. One of the most famous of these tortoises is Jonathan, who lives on the remote island of St. Helena in the South Atlantic Ocean. He hatched in the year 1832, the same year Charles Darwin set sail on the HMS Beagle. He has lived through the reigns of kings and queens, through world wars, through centuries of change, yet he continues to graze peacefully on the grass of his island home. At nearly 2 centuries old, Jonathan is considered the oldest known living land animal. His eyes have grown clouded, and his sense of smell has faded, but he still moves with the same deliberate dignity that defines his species. In his wrinkled skin and towering shell, one can almost feel the weight of the years he has carried. The secret to the tortoise's longevity is written into the way it lives. Its body is built for slowness. With a metabolism far lower than that of most animals, its organs endure little wear, its heart beats steadily but without haste, and its tissues accumulate damage at a slower pace. Every step, every breath, is measured and unhurried, conserving energy and extending life. This is not weakness but a profound adaptation, allowing the tortoise to thrive in environments where food can be scarce and survival demands efficiency. Their shells, great domes of bone covered in keratin, provide another key to their endurance. The shell is not merely armor against predators, but also a shield against the elements. It protects vital organs, reduces the risks of injury, and offers a sanctuary of strength in moments of danger. With this natural fortress, tortoises face fewer threats than many other animals of similar size, allowing them the luxury of time. A shell that grows thicker and stronger with age turns vulnerability into resilience, enabling the tortoise to live long enough for age itself to be the greatest hazard. Their longevity also ties to the world they inhabit. Giant tortoises often live on islands, such as the Galapagos and the Seychelles, where predators are few and resources, though limited, are enough to sustain a slow-moving grazer. Here, evolution favored creatures that could store water, endure droughts, and conserve energy over long periods. The result is a body designed for persistence, not speed, for survival stretched across centuries rather than decades. Scientists have studied giant tortoises to understand how their cells resist the march of time. Some research suggests that their DNA repair mechanisms are more efficient than ours, correcting errors that in humans accumulate into disease. Their immune systems remain strong even in old age, and their cells seem less prone to the runaway divisions that cause cancer. Each of these adaptations forms part of a tapestry that makes the tortoise not only long-lived, but remarkably healthy throughout most of its life. Watching a tortoise graze or lumber slowly toward a patch of greenery, it is easy to forget that it may have begun its life in a world utterly different from our own. Some alive today were once tiny hatchlings crawling out of sandy nests in the early 1800s, when the oceans were still crossed by wooden ships and the modern world was only beginning to take shape. They have witnessed generations of humans pass, their slow pace outlasting our hurried lives. And as the tortoise continues its measured journey across sunlit fields, it shares the world with other creatures of astonishing longevity, not on land but in the smallest forms of life, hidden in water droplets and on mossy surfaces where beings too tiny to see can endure the most extreme conditions imaginable, surviving in places where even centuries of ice and fire cannot bring them to an end. In the damp film of moss that clings to rocks, in droplets of water on fallen leaves, and in soils that crumble beneath our feet, there is a creature so small it can hardly be seen with the naked eye. Yet, within its minute frame lies one of the greatest survival stories in the history of life. The tardigrade, often called the water bear, is a being no larger than a grain of sand, with a plump body and stubby legs tipped with tiny claws. It looks almost cartoonish beneath the lens of a microscope, but its appearance hides an almost unbelievable resilience. Where nearly every other living thing would wither and die, the tardigrade endures. It has been found alive in the deep cold of Antarctic ice, where temperatures sink well below freezing, and in the scorching vents of hot springs, where water approaches the heat of boiling. It has survived levels of radiation that would shatter the DNA of any mammal. It has endured crushing pressure at the bottom of the ocean and the near total vacuum of outer space. In one experiment, tardigrades were carried aboard a spacecraft and exposed directly to the emptiness beyond Earth. When they were returned, many revived and continued their lives as though nothing extraordinary had happened. For an animal so small, with no bones and no complex organs, its ability to withstand extremes borders on the miraculous. The secret to this extraordinary toughness lies in a process called cryptobiosis. When conditions turn hostile, when water disappears or cold threatens to freeze every cell, the tardigrade can shut itself down. Its body dries almost completely, losing nearly all of its water content, until it shrivels into a tiny husk called a tune. In this state, its metabolism drops to a fraction of normal, so low it becomes almost undetectable. Chemical protectants form inside its cells, shielding proteins and DNA from damage, locking the machinery of life into a state of suspension. In this form, it is neither truly alive nor dead, but waiting. Tardigrades can remain in cryptobiosis for astonishing lengths of time. Records show individuals revived after more than 30 years in this state, springing back to life when placed once again in water. The reawakening is slow and deliberate. The husk absorbs moisture, cells swell, and movement returns to the little body. Soon the tardigrade stretches out its legs, resumes crawling, and returns to feeding, as though decades of dormancy were nothing more than an extended pause. In theory, under the right conditions, they could remain suspended far longer, centuries even, waiting patiently for the environment to become kind once more. Scientists studying this ability have uncovered proteins unique to tardigrades that seem to act like molecular shields. These proteins wrap around delicate structures in the cell, preventing them from collapsing when the water is gone. Other molecules form glass-like substances inside the body, holding everything in place until hydration returns. Even DNA that has been damaged by radiation can be repaired with unusual efficiency, as though the tardigrade's biology carries spare instructions for rebuilding itself after catastrophe. This resilience has made tardigrades a focus of research into how life might survive beyond Earth. If such a tiny creature can endure the vacuum of space, perhaps spores, bacteria, or even more complex life could travel between planets on meteors or spacecraft. They serve as models for how organisms might survive on Mars or beneath the frozen oceans of moons like Europa and Enceladus. For humans, their biology offers clues into protecting cells during dehydration, radiation exposure, or long-term preservation of tissues. Yet, despite their importance to science, tardigrades go about their lives quietly, feeding on algae and small organisms, reproducing in the hidden worlds of mosses and lichens. They are reminders that size is no measure of resilience, that the tiniest of beings can hold the grandest of secrets. And as these microscopic titans endure in their glass-like state of suspended life, there are others, only slightly larger, that share this gift of dormancy, awakening from frozen soils after tens of thousands of years to prove that life's grip on survival can stretch across unimaginable spans of time. In the frozen silence of Siberia, where winter grips the land for most of the year and the ground itself is locked in ancient ice, scientists uncovered a secret that had been hidden for longer than human history. Deep in the permafrost, layers of soil that had remained frozen for tens of thousands of years, they found tiny creatures preserved in a state between life and death. When thawed, some of these organisms stirred, their bodies reawakening after an unimaginable pause. Among them were rotifers, microscopic animals with wheel-like structures of cilia at their heads that spin as they move, giving them their name. These beings had slept for 24,000 years, waiting in silence until conditions once again allowed them to live. Rotifers are among the most resilient of Earth's small animals, found in lakes, ponds, and even the thinnest films of water that cling to soil. Despite their size, usually no more than half a millimeter long, they have evolved remarkable strategies to endure environments that shift from abundance to desolation. When drought dries their habitats, or when ice locks water away for centuries, rotifers can enter a state of suspended life. In this form, they lose nearly all of their water content, curl into protective shells, and halt almost every biological process. This is cryptobiosis, a phenomenon where life slows so much that it nearly disappears, allowing survival through conditions that would otherwise destroy fragile tissues. The rotifers recovered from Siberia showed just how powerful this ability can be. Encased in frozen soil since the last ice age, they had endured temperatures far below freezing for longer than human civilization has existed. When scientists carefully thawed the samples and introduced them to fresh water, the rotifers revived. Their cilia began to beat again, their tiny bodies stretched, and soon they were feeding, growing, and even reproducing, as though the long sleep had been nothing more than a moment's rest. For biology, it was one of the most striking demonstrations of survival ever recorded. The mechanisms that allow this resilience are still being uncovered. Inside a rotifer's body, protective proteins and sugars form structures that stabilize cells when water is lost. These act almost like scaffolding, keeping delicate molecules from collapsing or breaking apart. DNA damage, which in most animals accumulates rapidly under stress, seems to be repaired when rotifers rehydrate. Even their membranes, which should become brittle during drying or freezing, are somehow preserved. Scientists believe that during cryptobiosis, the rotifer's cells enter a state where normal chemistry is replaced by glass-like stability, freezing every molecule in place until water returns. This process not only explains their survival through extreme cold, but also hints at resilience to radiation and toxins. In laboratory tests, rotifers exposed to high levels of radiation, which would shred DNA in most creatures, managed to recover. Their ability to patch together damaged genetic material appears unusually strong, as though survival across millennia required more than endurance alone. It required the ability to rebuild. The discovery of rotifers, waking after 24,000 years, challenges our understanding of the limits of life. If such creatures can wait in ice for so long and still return to activity, it raises questions about how widespread this strategy might be in nature. Could similar forms of life lie hidden in other frozen soils or deep beneath glaciers, waiting for warmth to return? The implications extend beyond Earth. On planets or moons where conditions are harsh, such as Mars or Europa, if any microscopic life exists, cryptobiosis might be the key to its survival across the eons. While scientists continue to study rotifers in laboratories, observing how they survive desiccation and freezing, the creatures themselves go on living quietly in their natural habitats. In small drops of pond water, they spin their cilia, creating currents that sweep in food particles. They feed, reproduce, and carry out lives that seem ordinary, yet hidden within them is the ability to outlast centuries of ice. Their resilience is not loud or dramatic, but it has allowed them to persist through the turning of ages, carrying forward a lineage that has endured since before the first cities were built. As rotifers drift once more through water after their long sleep in Siberian permafrost, they remind us that time itself can bend under the right conditions. Life, in its simplest forms, has strategies for survival that stretch far beyond our expectations. And as we consider the power of cryptobiosis in these tiny survivors, our attention turns to another being whose resilience takes a different shape, not in the silence of frozen soil, but in the resistance to forces that would obliterate most life within moments, a bacterium so tough that it has been given the title of indestructible. In the vast and varied world of microbes, where life exists in forms too small for the human eye to see, there is one bacterium that has earned a reputation as nearly indestructible. It is called Deinococcus radiodurans, a name that hints at its remarkable powers, but it is better known by its nickname, Conan the Bacterium. Like the fictional warrior it was compared to, this tiny being seems able to survive conditions that would destroy almost any other form of life. The story of its discovery begins in the mid-20th century, when scientists were experimenting with ways to preserve food using radiation. The idea was that powerful doses of radiation would kill any microbes present, leaving the food safe to eat. Yet to their surprise, some canned meat continued to spoil despite being blasted with levels of radiation thought impossible for any organism to survive. When researchers investigated, they found that a single bacterium had endured the assault, thriving where none should have remained. That survivor was Deinococcus radiodurans. Radiation is usually lethal because it tears apart DNA, the delicate molecule that carries the instructions for life. When DNA strands break into pieces, cells can no longer function, and death quickly follows. Humans, for example, cannot withstand doses of radiation much higher than a few grays, a unit of measurement for absorbed radiation. Deinococcus radiodurans, however, can survive thousands of grays, levels hundreds of times greater than what would kill a person. It is as if its genetic material, even when shattered into fragments, refuses to surrender. The key to this resilience lies not in avoiding damage, but in repairing it with extraordinary precision. Inside each cell, the bacterium carries multiple copies of its genome. When radiation tears one strand apart, others remain as templates. Within hours, the fragments of broken DNA are stitched back together, reassembled almost like pieces of a puzzle. Enzymes dedicated to repair sweep through the cell, correcting errors, restoring order, and returning the genome to a working state. What would be a death sentence for almost any other organism becomes, for this bacterium, a temporary challenge. This ability extends beyond radiation. Deinococcus radiodurans can survive desiccation, the complete drying out of its cells, which often has the same destructive effect on DNA as radiation does. It can withstand extreme cold, high levels of toxic chemicals, and intense ultraviolet light. Each time, its secret is the same: repair. The cell does not prevent damage, but it recovers from it so efficiently that survival becomes almost certain. Scientists have marveled at this talent and studied it in detail, not only to understand the bacterium itself, but also for the possibilities it opens in biotechnology. If the mechanisms of DNA repair in Deinococcus could be adapted, they might help protect human cells from radiation, a possibility with implications for cancer treatment or even for long journeys into space. The bacterium has already been used in experiments to clean up radioactive waste, with its genes engineered to break down toxic materials while shrugging off the radiation that would stop other microbes in their tracks. What is perhaps most fascinating is that this extraordinary resilience may not have evolved for radiation at all. In nature, levels of radiation that high are rarely encountered. Instead, scientists believe the bacterium's powers developed as a response to desiccation in harsh environments, such as deserts. The ability to repair shattered DNA after drying out proved just as useful when radiation was added to the mix, a side effect of evolution that granted it the title of indestructible. Seen through a microscope, Deinococcus radiodurans does not look impressive. Its cells form small pink or red colonies, often appearing as neat spheres grouped together. Yet behind that modest appearance lies a survival strategy unmatched in the microbial world. It carries within it a living demonstration of resilience, of how life can persist even when every thread of its code is torn apart. And while Conan the bacterium repairs itself in the unseen spaces of laboratories and soils, other ancient creatures endure in the open, their bodies unchanged for hundreds of millions of years, their blood a strange blue liquid that has become essential to modern medicine, binding together the distant past of evolution with the pressing needs of human survival. On quiet beaches where the tide rises and falls with timeless rhythm, creatures shaped like helmets of bronze crawl slowly from the surf. Their shells gleam with the wetness of the sea, and their tails extend like rigid spears, leaving trails in the sand as they move. These are horseshoe crabs, animals so ancient that they walked the seafloor long before the first forests grew on land. They have endured for more than 450 million years, surviving mass extinctions, ice ages, and shifts in the continents themselves. To watch one lumber through the shallows is to see a living fossil, a body shaped in deep prehistory, carrying forward the memory of Earth's earliest seas. Unlike true crabs, horseshoe crabs are more closely related to spiders and scorpions. Their shells form a smooth shield, beneath which they hide 10 legs and book-like gills that move like pages turning in water. They feed gently, scooping worms and clams from the mud with their legs, grinding food with small spines that line their undersides. Their tails, though sharp, are not weapons but tools, helping them right themselves when the waves flip them over. They are creatures of patience, moving slowly and steadily across the seabed, their survival depending less on speed and more on endurance. One of the most extraordinary aspects of horseshoe crabs lies not in their outer form, but in their blood. Unlike humans, whose blood runs red with iron, horseshoe crabs carry copper in their blood cells, giving it a pale blue color. This blood contains a unique substance called limulus amaecyte lysate, or LAL, which reacts powerfully to bacterial toxins. For modern medicine, this property is invaluable. Every vaccine, every intravenous drug, and nearly every implantable medical device is tested using horseshoe crab blood to ensure it is free from harmful contamination. In this way, an animal that predates humanity by nearly 500 million years continues to save countless human lives each year. The harvesting of horseshoe crabs for this purpose has raised concerns for their populations, yet many are returned alive after their blood is collected. Conservation efforts now work to balance human need with the survival of these ancient creatures, whose role in coastal ecosystems is as vital as their role in medicine. Their eggs, laid in vast numbers during spawning, provide food for migratory birds that travel thousands of kilometers. Without the horseshoe crab, entire chains of life would falter, linking their survival to species far beyond the sea. What makes horseshoe crabs even more remarkable is how little they have changed across time. Fossil records show that their bodies today are nearly identical to those that scuttled across prehistoric seas hundreds of millions of years ago. While other species evolved into new forms, horseshoe crabs held steady. Their shape, their way of life, proved so effective that evolution had little reason to alter it. This slow pace of change became a strategy of survival. By remaining the same, they endured while countless other lineages vanished. Their presence reminds us that survival is not always about adaptation in the sense of becoming something new. Sometimes it is about stability, about a body so well suited to its environment that it can carry on nearly unchanged through mass extinctions and the shifting of worlds. Horseshoe crabs are monuments of biological persistence, witnesses to an Earth that has transformed again and again while they continued their steady march through time. As waves pull them back toward the sea, their blue blood hidden beneath ancient shells, the horseshoe crab embodies both history and future. It is an animal older than dinosaurs, yet deeply tied to modern life-saving science. And while it scuttles quietly along the shore, there are other reptiles, not as old but equally enduring, whose strength lies in their long lives and in bodies that continue to grow throughout the centuries, basking in waters and swamps where they have reigned for ages. In the warm wetlands of rivers and swamps, where reeds sway against the current and the air hums with the calls of birds, crocodiles lie almost motionless, their armored bodies half hidden in water. Their eyes, set high on their heads, watch with a patience that can last hours, waiting for the smallest ripple to betray the movement of prey. To many, they seem like relics from another age, and in truth, they are. Crocodiles have changed little since the time of the dinosaurs, their bodies refined over millions of years into one of the most efficient designs nature has ever created. With their ability to grow continuously throughout life and to live for more than a century, they have become symbols of endurance, outlasting empires of the land and tides of the sea. Unlike most animals, crocodiles do not have a fixed size at which growth stops. Instead, they exhibit indeterminate growth, meaning that as long as they live, they continue to grow, though the pace slows with age. A young crocodile may add several centimeters in a single year, while an old giant adds only a fraction, but it never ceases. This continuous growth is one of the reasons crocodiles can reach such massive proportions, with some individuals stretching over 6 meters in length. Their size is not only a measure of their age, but also a form of survival. A larger body means fewer predators, greater strength, and the ability to dominate territories where food and mates are fiercely contested. Their longevity is equally remarkable. Documented cases exist of crocodiles living well beyond 100 years. Some of these centenarians have become legends in the regions they inhabit, creatures that outlive generations of people who come and go along the banks of rivers. Their survival through such spans of time is shaped by a combination of biology and environment. Crocodiles have a slow metabolism, especially when compared to warm-blooded animals, allowing them to endure long periods without food. They can lower their heart rate dramatically, surviving on very little energy. In droughts, they may retreat to mud holes and remain in a state of near stillness for months, waiting until rains return. Such resilience reduces the strain that often wears other animals down with age. Their dominance within their ecosystems also plays a role. As apex predators, crocodiles sit at the top of the food chain in the watery worlds they inhabit. Few creatures pose a threat to them once they have reached a certain size, leaving disease and environmental hazards as their primary challenges. Even here, their thick skin and powerful immune systems grant them protection against injuries and infections that would be fatal to other animals. It is not uncommon for crocodiles to be seen carrying scars from battles, wounds long since healed, a testament to their capacity for recovery. Scientists studying their biology are fascinated not only by their longevity, but also by their ability to resist the typical signs of aging. While they are not immortal, crocodiles do not appear to experience the sharp decline in vitality seen in many other species. An old crocodile can remain just as dangerous, just as capable of hunting and reproducing as one half its age. This phenomenon, sometimes referred to as negligible senescence, suggests that their bodies are adapted to maintain strength and function across extended lifespans. In many ways, crocodiles are living bridges to the ancient past. Their ancestors swam alongside dinosaurs, and while the great reptiles of prehistory vanished, crocodiles endured. Their bodies, perfected for ambush and endurance, have carried them through mass extinctions, climate shifts, and the rise of mammals that would come to dominate the land. Their persistence speaks of an evolutionary design so effective that it required little alteration, and so they wait in their rivers and swamps, armored guardians of ecosystems that depend on their presence. Their watchful eyes and slow, deliberate movements hide lifespans that can stretch across a human century and beyond. As their shadows slip beneath the surface of the water, the world above continues to change, but the crocodile remains much the same. And while these reptiles hold dominion over their habitats with patience and power, in faraway ponds and temples of still water, there are other creatures, smaller but no less enduring, that carry stories of lives lasting nearly as long, their scales gleaming as symbols of longevity cherished across generations. In quiet garden ponds, where water reflects the sky and ripples spread gently from the brush of a fin, koi fish glide with unhurried grace. Their colors shimmer like strokes of paint, scarlet, white, gold, and black, moving in patterns that seem almost meditative. To many, they are not just fish but living symbols, cherished for beauty, patience, and above all, longevity. While most pond fish live for only a few decades, koi carry stories of lives that stretch far longer, with the most extraordinary among them remembered across centuries. The most famous of all was Hanako, a scarlet koi who lived in Japan. Born in the year 1751, Hanako swam in the clear waters of a mountain pond for generation after generation, her life unfolding across the reigns of emperors and the rise of modern nations. When she finally died in 1977, she was 226 years old. Her age was not a myth but a fact confirmed by science. Researchers examined her scales under a microscope and counted the growth rings that marked each passing year, much like the rings in the trunk of a tree. Each ring carried the memory of a season, recording her life with quiet precision. This method of scale dating revealed a truth that astonished even those who had long revered koi for their long lives. A single fish had outlived dynasties, wars, and revolutions, a creature that began life before the Industrial Revolution and only ended it in the late 20th century. Hanako became a legend, not just in Japan but across the world, her story a reminder that life, under the right conditions, can stretch far beyond what we expect. The secret of such longevity lies partly in biology. Koi, like many fish, continue to grow throughout their lives, and their metabolism adapts to the temperature of the water around them. In cold seasons, their bodies slow, conserving energy and reducing wear. In warm months, they become more active, feeding and growing as the environment allows. This rhythm of slow and fast seasons may help protect their cells from damage, balancing activity with periods of rest. With proper care, clean water, balanced diet, and protection from predators, koi can live for well over a century, each year adding another faint ring to their scales. Yet koi are more than biological marvels. They are cultural treasures, especially in Japan, where they are symbols of perseverance, prosperity, and harmony. Stories tell of koi swimming upstream against powerful currents, embodying determination and courage. Their presence in temple ponds and gardens carries a sense of peace, as though their steady movements mirror the flow of time itself. Families pass them down through generations, caring for them as living heirlooms. In some places, a koi pond becomes part of a household's history, with fish that have seen grandparents, parents, and children all grow beside the water. Even the colors of koi hold meaning. A red koi may symbolize love, a golden one wealth and fortune, and a black koi strength in overcoming hardship. Their patterns, carefully bred and celebrated, are like living canvases, each fish a unique expression of nature and human care combined. The reverence they inspire is not only because of their beauty, but also because they seem to embody resilience and continuity, qualities humans long to hold within themselves. Hanako remains the most famous example, but she is not alone. Other koi have been recorded living well beyond a century, their long lives supported by attentive caretakers and the sheltered environments of quiet ponds. Each one carries in its scales a story that can only be read when time has nearly run its course, a hidden archive of years written in the language of growth. As koi circle beneath blossoms that fall into the water from cherry trees, their presence feels like a link between the fleeting and the enduring. They remind us that even in small ponds, life can measure itself not in decades, but in centuries. And while koi glide through waters steeped in culture and reverence, high above oceans, another creature rides the endless winds, wings stretched wide, living for longer than most birds ever could, a symbol not of stillness, but of journeys that continue across generations. In the forests of South America, flashes of scarlet, emerald, and cobalt glide across the canopy, their wings scattering light as though painted by the sunlight itself. These are macaws, great parrots, whose colors are as striking as their voices, and whose lives unfold over spans that rival human generations. In other parts of the world, across the open woodlands of Australia, white cockatoos perch in great flocks, their crests rising like golden flames as they call to one another in the early morning light. Though oceans apart, these birds share a remarkable trait. They can live for more than 80 years, carrying their voices and memories through a century of change. Parrots are among the longest-lived birds on Earth, and their longevity is intertwined with the qualities that make them so captivating. Their intelligence, their social bonds, and their mastery of the skies combine to create lifespans far beyond the norm. Where smaller songbirds may live only a handful of years, macaws and cockatoos often outlive their human caretakers, leaving behind stories of birds that were present in one generation and still speaking in the next. Families have passed parrots down as heirlooms, companions whose voices echo the laughter and conversations of those long gone, a continuity of sound that bridges time. The secret to their long lives begins with their brains. Parrots are among the most intelligent of birds, capable of solving problems, mimicking human speech, and even demonstrating forms of reasoning that rival young children. This intelligence is not merely an ornament but a survival tool. In the wild, it allows them to remember where fruiting trees appear year after year, to navigate vast territories, and to communicate complex social cues within their flocks. A sharp mind increases survival, and with survival comes longevity. Animals that can avoid danger, find food efficiently, and maintain social bonds often live longer, and parrots are masters of all three. Their social lives are equally important. Parrots rarely live alone. They gather in pairs, families, or great flocks, where cooperation and communication are essential. Bonds between mates can last for life, with partners grooming one another, feeding each other, and raising chicks together across decades. In flocks, the collective vigilance of many eyes watching for predators reduces risk for all. Social structures provide stability, safety, and shared knowledge, conditions that favor long lives. In this way, their intelligence and their sociability work together, creating a foundation for survival that can stretch across 8 decades or more. Flight itself is another piece of the puzzle. Parrots are extraordinarily efficient flyers, their broad wings designed for both speed and maneuverability. This efficiency allows them to travel long distances in search of food without exhausting themselves. It also gives them the ability to escape predators swiftly, reducing the wear and tear that shorter lived animals suffer through constant pursuit and danger. In biology, efficiency often means endurance, and in parrots, the grace of flight translates into years of added life. The physiology of parrots supports this endurance as well. Their metabolic systems are finely tuned, balancing high bursts of energy in flight with long periods of rest. Their bodies repair cellular damage effectively, slowing the processes that lead to aging. Where many animals accumulate errors in their DNA that lead to decline, parrots seem to resist this wear for far longer. Combined with a lifestyle of careful feeding on fruits, seeds, and nuts, rich in nutrients and antioxidants, their biology favors resilience. Stories of long-lived parrots illustrate just how remarkable these lifespans are. Some macaws have lived alongside 3 generations of a single family, their voices carrying jokes and phrases first spoken by ancestors decades earlier. Cockatoos in sanctuaries have been documented living well beyond 80 years, their crests still rising in display, their calls still filling the air. They are not simply pets or wild birds, but companions across time, embodying a continuity of life rare in the animal world. As parrots soar over forests and woodlands, their long lives connect them deeply to the landscapes they inhabit. A single bird may return to the same roosting site year after year for half a century, watching trees grow, storms pass, and rivers shift their courses. Their lives remind us that intelligence, cooperation, and efficiency can turn fleeting years into decades that stretch beyond human memory. And high above the seas, another bird carries its own story of extraordinary endurance, one that continues to beat its wings into its 70s, gliding across entire oceans with the patience of a traveler who refuses to grow old. Across the vast emptiness of the Pacific Ocean, where waves roll endlessly and the horizon stretches unbroken, a white-winged bird glides with effortless grace. Its wings, spanning more than 2 meters, hardly move as it rides invisible currents of air. This is the albatross, master of the open sea, a creature built for distance rather than speed, for patience rather than haste. Among them, one bird has captured the imagination of scientists and the wider world alike. Her name is Wisdom, a Laysan albatross who has continued to breed even in her 70s, carrying a story that has now outlasted entire human generations. Wisdom was first banded by researchers in 1956 on Midway Atoll, a remote island in the northwestern Hawaiian archipelago. At the time, she was already an adult, likely at least 5 years old, since albatrosses do not begin breeding until then. Decades passed, yet Wisdom kept returning to the same island, each year laying an egg, raising a chick, and then vanishing across the ocean for months at a time. While countless birds and even many researchers who studied her have come and gone, she has remained, steadfast in her cycle of flight and return, Today, she is recognized as the oldest known wild bird in the world, still producing young after 70 years of life. What allows an albatross-like wisdom to endure for so long lies partly in the extraordinary efficiency of her flight. Unlike smaller birds that flap constantly, burning energy with every wing beat, albatrosses have perfected a style of soaring called dynamic soaring. By using the winds that sweep over ocean waves, they can rise, dip, and glide with minimal effort, covering hundreds of kilometers in a single day while scarcely beating their wings. Their bodies are built for this, with long, narrow wings that lock into place at the shoulder, reducing muscle strain. In this way, they travel across vast oceans without exhausting themselves, conserving energy in a manner that extends their lifespan. Their lives are defined by these great journeys. An albatross may circle the globe many times over in the course of a single year, following the shifting patterns of wind and food. Wisdom herself has likely flown millions of kilometers across her lifetime, distances so vast they are difficult to imagine. Through storms and calm seas, through nights of starlight and days when the ocean gleams like glass, she has continued her endless wandering. This rhythm of long flight and seasonal return has carried her through decades that surpass the lifespans of most creatures on Earth. But it is not only their flight that grants albatrosses such longevity. Their social bonds and careful pace of life play a role as well. Albatrosses form lifelong partnerships, returning to the same mate year after year, often reuniting with elaborate dances of bows and calls. They invest immense energy in raising a single chick, sometimes for more than a year, feeding it with regurgitated fish and squid gathered from the sea. This slow, careful approach to reproduction, though risky, ensures that each chick has the best chance of survival. For a bird like Wisdom to continue this process into her 70s is nothing short of extraordinary, and it speaks to a resilience written deep into her biology. Wisdom has now outlived most of the people who first studied her. Generations of biologists have banded her, checked her nest, and marveled at her continued survival. Entire human lifetimes have passed, yet she still returns, still lays her egg, still tends to her young. In her, time feels different, stretched across arcs longer than human experience usually allows. She is not just an individual bird, but a living witness to decades of change, from the decline of albatross populations due to longline fishing and plastic pollution, to the slow work of conservation that has sought to protect their nesting grounds. And as Wisdom continues to soar over the Pacific, riding the winds as she has done for more than 70 years, she embodies the endurance of life itself. While people measure their lives in decades, while nations rise and fall, she keeps to the eternal rhythm of wing and wave. Her story a reminder that in the natural world, some lives stretch far beyond the limits we expect. And as her wings carve silent paths through the skies, other beings beneath the ocean follow their own strategies of longevity, conserving energy in the cold and the dark, where survival depends not on soaring flight, but on the art of slowing life to its barest rhythm. In the black waters of the deep sea, where sunlight never reaches and pressure crushes with the weight of entire oceans above, there drifts a creature whose name is far more fearsome than its nature. The vampire squid, with arms lined by soft webbing that resembles a cloak, and eyes so large they glow like lanterns in the abyss, has become one of the deep ocean's quiet mysteries. Despite its dramatic appearance, it does not hunt like its relatives, the squid and the octopus. Instead, it has evolved into a master of survival, enduring not through strength or speed, but through patience and an economy of energy that may explain its remarkable longevity. The deep ocean is one of the most stable environments on Earth. Temperatures remain near freezing, light is absent, and food is scarce, descending slowly from the surface in the form of marine snow, tiny flakes of organic matter, plankton remains, and the drifting fragments of life. For most animals, such conditions would be unbearable, yet the vampire squid thrives here by slowing nearly every process of its life. Its metabolism is among the lowest of any cephalopod, conserving energy so carefully that it can survive on meager resources. Where other squids live fast and die young, the vampire squid drifts quietly, its life stretched across decades. Unlike the octopus or cuttlefish, which expend great bursts of energy chasing prey or escaping predators, the vampire squid follows a strategy of restraint. Its diet consists mainly of detritus gathered from the water column. With filaments as thin as threads, it extends its arms to capture drifting particles, coating them in mucus and drawing them back to its beak. It does not need to hunt, to fight, or to spend its strength in pursuits that drain life quickly. By living off the ocean's leftovers, it survives in places where others cannot, avoiding the frantic pace of shallow waters. Its body is equally adapted to endurance. The vampire squid has developed large gills that extract oxygen efficiently from the oxygen-poor depths. Its muscles function with little energy, and its circulation can slow dramatically, lowering demands on the heart. Even its movements are designed to conserve strength. It does not dart through the water like a cuttlefish, but drifts gently, pulsing its fins in slow, deliberate strokes. In the stillness of the abyss, this economy is not weakness but wisdom, a way of stretching life across years that other cephalopods never see. Cephalopods, as a group, are known for short lives. Many octopuses live only 1 or 2 years, expending immense energy in rapid growth and reproduction before their bodies decline. Squids, too, often live fast, with brief lives driven by bursts of activity in nutrient-rich shallows. The vampire squid defies this pattern. By choosing the deep ocean, where change is rare and resources are limited, it escapes the pressures that demand speed. Its low metabolism shields it from the oxidative stresses that, in many animals, contribute to aging. With each slow heartbeat and each gentle movement of its fins, it avoids the wear and tear that shorten the lives of its kin. Though its exact lifespan remains uncertain, studies suggest that vampire squids can live for several decades, making them the longest lived among their cephalopod relatives. In a world where survival usually favors the fast and the fierce, the vampire squid has chosen a different path. Its very existence seems to be a compromise between life and environment, a delicate balance that allows it to persist quietly where others could not. Its appearance only deepens the mystery. When threatened, it can turn its body inside out, drawing its arms over itself to form a cloak, exposing spiny projections that make it appear larger and more menacing. Its bioluminescent organs, scattered across its body, shimmer with faint light, confusing predators in the darkness. Yet these defenses, like its feeding habits, are designed to conserve rather than to exhaust. They are not weapons to attack, but strategies to endure, to live long in a place where survival is measured not in speed, but in stillness. And so the vampire squid continues its slow drift through the abyss, a creature that has traded the frenzy of the shallows for the patience of the deep. It is a reminder that longevity does not always come from strength or size, but from balance, from conserving life's spark rather than burning it too quickly. As it hovers in the blackness, gathering the gentle rain of the sea above, it shares its world with other fish of the depths, giants of surprising age that move through cold waters with the same unhurried endurance, their lifespans stretching into centuries beneath the silence of the ocean. In the icy waters of the North Atlantic, where darkness lingers for months and the cold penetrates to the bone, a flat fish called the Greenland halibut drifts slowly along the seabed. Its body, adapted to the chill, is asymmetrical like other flatfish, with both eyes perched on one side of its head. But unlike its shallow water relatives that live hurried lives in warmer seas, the Greenland halibut moves with the patience of centuries. It is one of the cold water dwellers whose bodies are tuned to a rhythm so slow that age itself seems to lose its grip. Even more astonishing are the rockfish found in the North Pacific, particularly in the waters off Alaska and the Pacific Northwest. These fish, with rough scales and large, watchful eyes, are among the longest-lived vertebrates known. Some species, such as the rough-eye rockfish, have been recorded living for more than 200 years. Imagine a fish born at the dawn of the 19th century, still alive in the 21st, a creature that has silently witnessed the industrial age, the rise of electricity, the first airplanes, and the age of spaceflight, all while gliding through the cold currents of the deep sea. What gives these fish such extraordinary lifespans is the environment they inhabit. Cold water slows metabolism. Every heartbeat, every breath, every movement is stretched out. In a warm-blooded animal, such slow rhythms would be impossible, but in fish adapted to the depths, this unhurried pace becomes their greatest advantage. The low temperatures reduce cellular damage over time, and oxygen is consumed at a gentler rate, meaning the byproducts of respiration, which in many animals speed up aging, accumulate far more slowly. The Greenland halibut exemplifies this adaptation. It lives in depths that often exceed 1,000 meters, in waters so cold they hover just above freezing. Down there, food is scarce, and energy must be carefully conserved. The halibut does not grow quickly, nor does it reproduce rapidly. Instead, its life strategy is built on endurance. Growth is slow, but steady. Reproduction is infrequent, but it spans a long adult life. By avoiding the rush of short-lived species, the halibut stretches existence across decades, even as the world above changes and moves on. Rockfish reveal a similar pattern, though their biology adds even more intrigue. They carry unusually long telomeres, the protective caps at the ends of chromosomes that shorten with each cell division in most animals. In rockfish, these telomeres seem to persist far longer, helping their cells maintain function over many decades. Their tissues show remarkable resistance to oxidative stress, and they continue to reproduce well into their later years. Unlike many animals that grow frail with time, rockfish remain active and fertile, producing new generations century after century. Scientists studying these ancient fish have found their longevity tied not only to the cold, but also to evolutionary trade-offs. They grow slowly, reach maturity late, and produce fewer offspring compared to species that live shorter lives. Yet those offspring are more likely to survive, nurtured by parents who have mastered the art of endurance. In the vast and often unpredictable ocean, this slow, steady strategy ensures stability where others falter. The depths themselves also play a role. Life at great pressure and low light demands efficiency. There is little room for waste. By conserving energy and avoiding the frantic cycles of surface life, these fish defy the patterns that drive most species toward shorter spans. Their existence suggests that aging is not a fixed rule, but a malleable process, shaped by environment as much as by genes. To hold a rockfish in hand is to touch a creature that may have begun life in a world unrecognizable to us, yet still swims with the same quiet determination. To see a Greenland halibut rise from the cold depths is to glimpse a fish that has lived its life as though time itself were slowed by the waters around it. These old fish of the deep remind us that longevity can come not from strength or speed, but from stillness, patience, and a life measured in centuries rather than years. And while they drift in their icy domains, far below, entire colonies of other marine beings thrive by cloning themselves across millennia, spreading their lives in ways that may outlast even the oldest of fish. Beneath the surface of warm tropical seas, where sunlight filters through turquoise water and currents carry drifting clouds of plankton, coral reefs rise like living cities. At first glance, they look like stone, solid and unmoving, yet every curve and ridge is alive with countless tiny creatures. These are coral polyps, soft-bodied animals no larger than a grain of rice, each one living within a cup of limestone that it secretes around itself. Alone, a single polyp is fragile and short-lived. Together, linked through endless cycles of cloning, they build sprawling colonies that can stretch for kilometers and persist for thousands of years. Each polyp divides itself, creating an identical copy. That copy grows and divides again, adding another to the colony, until the living network becomes a vast structure that outlives its individual parts. While the tiny polyps come and go, living their brief lives and then vanishing, the colony endures, expanding upward and outward, always adding new generations. This is clonal immortality, where life is passed forward seamlessly, not through children who differ from their parents, but through replicas that carry the same genetic code. In this way, a reef is not a collection of individuals, but one great superorganism, stretching across centuries as though time itself bends around it. The scale of what these colonies create is breathtaking. The Great Barrier Reef in Australia, the largest living structure on Earth, spans over 2,000 kilometers and can be seen from space. Though it is composed of billions of tiny polyps, it functions as a single living fortress, built stone by stone through the work of countless generations. Some coral colonies within it are thought to be more than 4,000 years old, making them among the most ancient creatures alive today. When seen from above, reefs glow with brilliant color, their surfaces covered in corals, sponges, and the shimmer of darting fish. Yet beneath this beauty lies the quiet persistence of clonal life, stretching into deep time. The persistence of coral colonies is aided by the environment of the sea itself. Protected by the buffering power of water, they are less vulnerable to sudden changes than land creatures. Their growth is slow, measured in millimeters each year, but this very slowness grants stability. By taking their time, corals spread across centuries, building reefs that resist waves, shelter fish, and provide havens for thousands of other species. The reefs become ecosystems, supporting more biodiversity than almost any other environment on Earth. Yet, the endurance of coral is not invincible. Though the colony can live for millennia, it depends on a delicate partnership. Within each polyp live microscopic algae called zooxanthellae, which use sunlight to make food through photosynthesis. In exchange for shelter, they provide energy that fuels coral growth. This symbiosis is one of the secrets of coral's success, allowing tiny animals to build colossal limestone structures. But when the water grows too warm or too polluted, the partnership breaks down. The algae are expelled, leaving the corals pale and weakened in an event known as bleaching. If the stress continues, the colony dies, its seemingly eternal life cut short by changes in the environment. Still, the idea of clonal persistence raises haunting questions. Could some reefs, untouched by disturbance, be nearly immortal? As long as polyps continue to clone themselves, As long as new growth replaces what has been lost, the colony has no built-in end. Unlike creatures that age and decline, coral avoids senescence by renewing itself indefinitely. Its true enemy is not time, but the changing conditions of the seas. In theory, a coral colony could live forever, an unbroken chain of life that began before written history and could continue long after the present age has passed. As divers descend into coral gardens today, they move among structures that may have begun before the rise of civilizations, reefs that have seen oceans rise and fall, climates shift, and continents reshape. The corals beneath them are not individuals, but echoes of a single, ancient life, copied again and again, reaching across centuries. And as these marine cities glow with the colors of living stone, they remind us that immortality in nature often does not lie in the body of one being, but in the collective persistence of many, working as one. From these nearly eternal reefs, attention turns to other creatures of the sea that also resist the pull of time, not through colonies, but within their own bodies, showing few signs of aging as they continue to thrive even into their oldest years. Beneath the rolling waves, in tide pools and along rocky coasts, sea urchins cling to stone with tube feet, so delicate they seem almost invisible. Their spiny bodies, round and bristling like living pincushions, move slowly across the seafloor as they graze on algae and detritus. They may appear simple, with no brain, no eyes, and no grand movements, yet within their biology lies a secret that has puzzled and fascinated scientists. Some species of sea urchins seem to resist aging almost entirely, showing little decline in strength or reproduction even after decades of life. They are creatures that appear to have stepped aside from the rule of senescence, continuing their existence as though time passes differently for them. In most animals, age brings a steady decline. Muscles weaken, tissues lose their ability to repair, and reproduction slows until it ceases altogether. But in sea urchins, particularly species like the red sea urchin, which can live for more than 2 centuries, none of these rules seem to apply. They continue to reproduce even into extreme old age, their gametes as viable as those of much younger individuals. Their spines, which may break or wear down, regrow again and again, and even their internal tissues regenerate with a vigor that seems immune to the passage of years. The concept used to describe this phenomenon is negligible senescence. It means that the risk of dying does not increase with age, and the body does not show the typical decline seen in other species. For a sea urchin, being a century old may be little different than being a decade old. Its body maintains itself, its functions remain steady, and its ability to heal continues as if untouched by time. It is not true immortality, for predators, disease, or accidents can still claim an individual, but it is a biological resistance to aging itself. The secret lies partly in the urchin's regenerative abilities. Spines that are snapped off by predators regrow, often in perfect form. Tube feet, which help with movement and feeding, regenerate after damage. Even parts of their internal organs can repair themselves with efficiency rarely seen in other animals. Beneath their hard shells, cells retain a capacity for renewal that in humans fades with age. Stem cells in their tissues remain active throughout life, repairing damage, replacing worn-out parts, and ensuring that decline is delayed far beyond what would be expected. Their reproductive resilience is equally striking. In many animals, fertility dwindles with age, but in sea urchins, old individuals are just as capable of producing eggs and sperm as young ones. This ensures that populations can be sustained across centuries, with the genetic contributions of ancient individuals still flowing into new generations. It is as though age grants no barrier to their role in the continuation of life. The environment where sea urchins live may also contribute to their longevity. Cold waters, particularly in the habitats of long-lived species like the red sea urchin, slow metabolism and reduce cellular stress. A slower pace of life allows for reduced damage at the microscopic level, preserving tissues for longer spans of time. Their diets, made up of algae and detritus, provide steady resources without the extremes of feast and famine that wear down other creatures. Living close to the seafloor, they move slowly, avoiding the frantic energy demands that shorten lives in more active species. For scientists, sea urchins have become models for understanding the biology of aging. By studying how their cells regenerate, how their fertility is preserved, and how their bodies resist decline, researchers hope to uncover insights that could one day inform human health. The dream is not of immortality, but of extending vitality, of carrying strength and resilience farther into life than we currently can. In sea urchins, nature has already written such a script, playing it quietly on the ocean floor. And so, while sea urchins graze silently among rocks and kelp, they hold within them the story of a body that does not bend easily to time. Their shells may seem simple, their movements unremarkable, but they embody a defiance of aging itself, a persistence that stretches across centuries. As their spines glisten in the filtered light of the sea, they remind us that longevity takes many forms, sometimes hidden in creatures small and overlooked. From their bristling shapes, the story of life's endurance carries us deeper still, into waters where even greater patience is found, among sponges that grow so slowly they may live not for centuries but for millennia, silent witnesses of ages long gone. In the frozen waters that circle Antarctica, far below the drifting icebergs and the sweep of glaciers, lie some of the strangest and most enduring creatures on Earth. Anchored to the seafloor like fragile sculptures, Antarctic glass sponges rise in delicate lattices of silica. Their bodies look almost like frozen snowflakes or spun glass, pale and translucent, as though they were shaped not by life, but by the hand of an artist. Yet they are alive, filtering the water that passes through their porous forms, and they may have been doing so for longer than any human civilization has existed. Some of these sponges are thought to be more than 10,000 years old, making them among the oldest living animals on the planet. The secret to such unimaginable lifespans lies in their extraordinary stillness. Glass sponges have some of the slowest metabolisms known in the animal kingdom. Where most creatures feed and grow at a pace dictated by survival, these sponges live in near suspension, stretching their lives across spans of time so vast that ice ages come and go while they remain. Their tissues work with astonishing efficiency, requiring little energy to function. By slowing nearly every process of life to its gentlest rhythm, they conserve themselves across millennia, surviving not by racing against time, but by surrendering to it. The cold waters of the Antarctic deep are their refuge. Temperatures here hover just above freezing, and in such conditions, decay slows to a crawl. Few predators dare to linger in this environment, and food arrives only in drifting particles, tiny fragments of organic matter that sink from the surface far above. The sponges do not need much, only a steady trickle of nutrients carried on the currents, which they draw through their intricate canals. Inside, specialized cells filter the water, trapping microscopic food and carrying it into their tissues. The process is slow, but it is steady, and over centuries it provides enough to sustain them. Each sponge grows in silence, adding layer upon layer of silica to its structure until it becomes a cathedral of glass. The tallest may reach several meters in height, their shapes branching and curling into delicate frameworks that resemble corals or frozen lace. These structures are not only beautiful but functional, forming habitats for other deep-sea creatures. Fish, worms, and small invertebrates find shelter within their hollows, turning the sponges into underwater cities that endure for thousands of years. Scientists studying these beings have marveled at their resilience. By analyzing growth rates and the accumulation of certain isotopes in their skeletons, researchers have estimated lifespans that exceed 10 millennia. To put that in perspective, some of the sponges alive today may have begun growing when glaciers last advanced across Europe, long before the first pyramids rose in Egypt. They have lived through the rise and fall of civilizations, through the shifting of climates, through countless storms above the ocean surface, while remaining unchanged in the deep. Their very existence offers a record of the past. Like tree rings, the layers of silica that build their skeletons contain information about the waters they filtered. Trapped within are chemical traces that reveal what the ocean was like centuries ago, providing scientists with a window into Earth's climate history. In this way, glass sponges are not only survivors, but also silent chroniclers, their bodies carrying stories of ancient seas. Their longevity also raises profound questions about the limits of life. If animals can persist for 10,000 years by slowing themselves to near stillness, then perhaps time is not always a measure of decline. Perhaps, in the right conditions, life can stretch almost endlessly, not by avoiding death, but by bending the very rhythm of existence. As these sponges continue their quiet vigil on the Antarctic seafloor, they embody patience on a scale that is almost beyond imagination. While ice sheets advance and retreat above them, while entire ecosystems shift and transform, they remain as witnesses, delicate yet unbroken. And in the cold darkness where they thrive, there are other fish that have learned to endure the centuries as well, their lifespans stretching to more than 200 years, moving with unhurried purpose in the deep ocean, where age seems less a limit than a quiet companion. In the cold, dark waters of the deep ocean, there swims a fish whose body carries the weight of centuries. The orange ruffy, with its bright copper-colored scales and large, reflective eyes, is a creature that seems ordinary at first glance, yet its story is extraordinary. Unlike most fish that live fast and die young, the orange ruffy has a lifespan that stretches across more than 200 years. Some of the individuals alive today may have hatched in the late 1700s, long before electricity lit human cities, long before the modern world took shape. The orange ruffy lives at depths ranging from several hundred to more than 1,000 meters, where the sunlight cannot reach. In this twilight world, the waters are cold, the pressure immense, and the pace of life incredibly slow. Metabolism here runs at a fraction of the speed seen in warmer, shallower seas. Growth is painstakingly gradual, reproduction infrequent, but survival is stretched across centuries. The biology of the orange ruffy is perfectly tuned to this environment. Its cells operate slowly, reducing the wear that comes from energy use. Its tissues regenerate at a pace that delays decline. The result is a fish that ages so gradually that time itself seems to pass differently for it. Unlike many fish, orange ruffy do not reach reproductive maturity until they are more than 20 or even 30 years old. Such a long childhood would be fatal in most species, but in the deep ocean it is a strategy for survival. Their populations grow steadily, with each fish living long enough to produce many generations of offspring once maturity is reached. Spawning happens in massive gatherings, where thousands of individuals rise from the depths to release eggs and sperm into the water. These events are rare but spectacular, the product of patience built over decades. It is this very patience, however, that has made the orange roughy vulnerable. When commercial fishing fleets first discovered these fish in the late 20th century, they were astonished by the abundance. Huge shoals gathered to spawn, and their deep orange bodies glowed in the nets pulled from the sea. The fisheries quickly grew, but what seemed like endless supply was, in fact, centuries of life being harvested in a matter of years. The biology of the orange roughy, which favors long lifespans and slow reproduction, could not keep pace with the speed of industrial fishing. Populations collapsed, and recovery has been painfully slow, measured not in years but in decades, because each generation takes so long to replace itself. The plight of the orange roughy has become a lesson in how the deep ocean works. Life there is not built on speed, but on endurance. The cold slows every chemical process, and with less oxygen and energy available, creatures invest in longevity rather than rapid growth. Aging in the deep sea slows to a crawl. Animals like the orange roughy are not exceptions but representatives of a broader truth. In the stillness of the abyss, the rules of biology shift, favoring lives that stretch across centuries. Scientists study these fish not only to understand their survival, but also to learn about aging itself. By examining their tissues and cells, researchers gain insight into how low metabolism and slow living protect against decline. The orange roughy shows that aging is not an unbreakable law, but a process that can be altered by environment, by pace, and by patience. As the orange roughy continues to swim in the cold depths, it carries a legacy that connects centuries. A fish alive today may have been born before the first steam engines, and with luck, it may live into the age of interplanetary exploration. Yet, it remains hidden, gliding through the black waters of the deep ocean, its body holding secrets that speak not only of its world, but of the resilience of life itself. And while it waits in its quiet realm, other ancient dwellers of the deep share the same endurance. Great predators like sharks that have ruled the oceans for centuries, their lives stretching across time in parallel with the slow heartbeat of the abyss. In the wide expanse of the open ocean, where blue stretches without end and the horizon blurs into the sky, sharks glide with the same quiet authority they have held for hundreds of millions of years. Among them are giants that live not just for decades, but for centuries, carrying their lives far beyond the span of most creatures. While the Greenland shark holds the record for the longest-lived vertebrate, other species of shark also show remarkable longevity, with some surviving well beyond 100 years. These predators, ancient in design yet still thriving today, reveal how size, biology, and the mysteries of the deep shape the rhythm of aging. The whale shark, the largest fish in the sea, is a striking example. Despite its enormous size, often exceeding 12 meters in length, it is a gentle filter feeder, drifting through warm seas with its wide mouth open to capture plankton and small fish. For a long time, little was known about how long these giants live, but radiocarbon dating of their cartilage has revealed lifespans that can surpass a century. By examining growth bands in the vertebrae, much like counting the rings of a tree, scientists have been able to piece together the story of their years. Each band marks a season, a record of growth slowed by time, showing that whale sharks can live well into their 100th year and possibly beyond. This method of radiocarbon dating has also been used in other species, such as the porbeagle shark and the spiny dogfish, both of which have been found to live for several decades, with some individuals reaching more than a century. Unlike bony fish, sharks do not have hard skeletons. Their bodies are built of cartilage, flexible yet durable, and it is within this cartilage that chemical traces of the past remain. By measuring the levels of carbon isotopes, scientists can estimate ages with surprising accuracy, uncovering lifespans far longer than once imagined. The reason large sharks live so long lies partly in their size. Bigger animals generally have slower metabolisms, and their bodies endure less wear from rapid growth or frantic activity. The whale shark's immense bulk allows it to move with calm efficiency, each beat of its tail propelling it great distances with minimal effort. Even predatory sharks, such as the great white, use strategies of patience rather than constant exertion, conserving energy for the right moment to strike. This balance between power and restraint reduces the cellular damage that accumulates in smaller, faster living animals. Another factor is their position in the food chain. Apex predators face fewer threats once they reach maturity. While young sharks are vulnerable, those that survive into adulthood rarely fall prey to other animals. With fewer external dangers, their lives are limited less by predation and more by the slow passage of time. Evolution favors individuals that can reproduce across many years, spreading offspring over centuries to ensure the survival of the species. Long life, therefore, becomes not an accident but a strategy written into their biology. Yet even with their longevity, sharks are not immune to danger. Unlike natural predators, human activity threatens them in ways evolution never prepared them for. Slow growth and late maturity mean populations recover poorly from overfishing. A whale shark that may take 30 years to reach reproductive age cannot easily replace itself in a world of industrial harvest. The very qualities that allow these animals to live for a century make them vulnerable in an age where decades of life can be swept away in a single generation of human exploitation. Still, the sight of a whale shark gliding beneath the sunlit surface, its body speckled with white spots like a living constellation, carries a sense of timelessness. These fish have been crossing oceans since before many nations existed. Their slow and steady lives, a counterpoint to the restless pace of human history. They remind us that longevity in nature often belongs to the patient, to the creatures that measure their lives not in years but in centuries. And while sharks beyond Greenland carry their age in the silence of the seas, other fish in the frozen waters of the Antarctic have taken longevity even further, reshaping their very blood to survive the coldest temperatures on Earth, extending life not through size or dominance, but through adaptations as strange as they are effective. In the far southern seas, where the ocean is sealed with drifting ice and the water hovers just above freezing, lives a family of creatures unlike any other on Earth. These are the Antarctic ice fish, pale and almost ghost-like, their bodies adapted to one of the harshest environments imaginable. They drift through waters that would kill most other animals within minutes, yet for them, this frozen world is home. Their survival depends on a set of strange and remarkable adaptations that allow them to thrive in conditions colder than any other fish can withstand. The first thing that sets them apart is their blood. Most vertebrates, including humans, depend on hemoglobin, the iron-rich protein that makes blood red and carries oxygen to every cell. But the Antarctic ice fish are different. Their blood is clear, almost transparent, because it contains no hemoglobin at all. For a long time, scientists found this hard to believe. Without hemoglobin, how could oxygen reach their tissues? The answer lies in the cold. In freezing water, oxygen dissolves more readily, and the concentration of oxygen in the Southern Ocean is higher than in warmer seas. The ice fish take advantage of this abundance. Their blood plasma absorbs enough oxygen directly, and their hearts pump it through their bodies with unusual power circulating it at volumes far higher than in most other fish. To make this possible, their hearts are oversized compared to their body size, beating with steady strength to move the oxygen-rich plasma. Their blood vessels are wide, reducing resistance and allowing greater flow. Their skin is thin and scaleless, helping oxygen to diffuse directly from the surrounding water into their bodies. Every part of their anatomy is shaped by the icy sea, a living example of evolution bending to the extremes of environment. These adaptations come at a cost. Without hemoglobin, their blood cannot carry as much oxygen as that of other animals. To compensate, icefish led slow, deliberate lives. Their movements are unhurried, conserving energy, and their metabolisms run at a pace set by the freezing water around them. They do not dart and chase like warmer water predators, but instead hover and drift, feeding on small fish, crustaceans, and the plankton that thrive in the nutrient-rich Southern Ocean. Their patience is rewarded with survival, and their bodies avoid the stresses that shorten the lives of faster-living species. This slow pace of life is one of the keys to their longevity. Cold water itself has a profound effect on aging. Low temperatures slow the chemical reactions that wear down cells and tissues over time. In icefish, this effect is amplified by their low metabolism, reducing the accumulation of cellular damage that in many animals leads to decline. While they are not immortal, their lives are stretched out, lasting far longer than the lifespans of similar-sized fish in warmer seas. Some are believed to live for several decades, their quiet existence a mirror of the frozen environment they inhabit. The strangeness of icefish goes beyond their blood. Their genomes reveal unique adaptations, including the loss of genes related to hemoglobin and the evolution of antifreeze proteins that keep their blood from crystallizing in sub-zero water. These proteins bind to ice crystals, stopping them from growing, a microscopic defense that makes the difference between life and death in their frozen habitat. It is as though their very bodies are laced with a natural shield against the cold. To encounter an Antarctic icefish is to see an animal that looks almost translucent, its pale body blending with the icy water. In the darkness beneath the sea ice, where green light filters faintly from above, they move like phantoms, their outlines soft and their presence quiet. Yet behind that stillness lies a story of resilience. They have taken the most extreme environment on Earth and turned it into a home, reshaping their bodies to match it in every detail. And while they glide through their frozen seas with blood as clear as glass, their longevity in the cold is a reminder that time itself bends differently in the deep. Just as icefish survive through slow rhythms and careful balance, so too do other creatures of the sea resist age, whether through regeneration, through protective shells, or through strategies of reproduction that allow them to endure across centuries. From the Antarctic depths, the story of long life flows onward, touching mammals of the skies and seas whose lifespans seem equally improbable in a world defined by limits. In the twilight hours, when the last streaks of sunlight fade and the air begins to hum with unseen wings, bats emerge from caves, trees, and crevices to fill the night sky. Small, fast, and fragile-looking, they do not appear to be creatures built for long life. Most mammals of their size live for only a few years, their hearts beating too quickly, their bodies burning through energy at a pace that leads to early decline. Yet bats break this rule with a quiet defiance. Some species live not for 5 or 10 years, but for more than 40, making them some of the longest-lived small mammals on Earth. The mystery of bat longevity begins with a paradox. In biology, there is a rule known as the longevity quotient, which compares an animal's lifespan to its body size. Generally, large animals live longer, and small ones live shorter lives. A mouse weighing a few grams rarely survives more than a couple of years. A human, with a body thousands of times larger, can expect to live decades. By this rule, bats should live no longer than rodents of similar size. Yet bats, despite their tiny bodies, often outlive animals hundreds of times larger, carrying lives that stretch into decades. One explanation lies in their wings. Flight is not only a tool for movement, but also a strategy for survival. Animals that can fly are less likely to be hunted, and with fewer natural predators, they can live long enough to reveal the full extent of their potential lifespan. Unlike ground-dwelling rodents, which live fast lives constantly at risk of being prey, bats use the air as a shield. This relative safety allows their biology to favor longevity, but their secrets go deeper than flight. At the level of DNA and cellular function, bats have evolved remarkable mechanisms that resist the usual wear of aging. Studies show that bats repair damage to their DNA more effectively than most other mammals. Their chromosomes are protected by long telomeres, the caps that shorten with age in many animals, triggering cellular decline. In bats, these telomeres remain intact far longer, preserving the health of cells and delaying the onset of aging. Their immune systems also appear to play a role. Bats host viruses that would devastate other species, yet they remain healthy. Their bodies have developed ways to control inflammation, one of the processes that often accelerates aging in mammals. By avoiding the constant damage caused by overactive immune responses, bats protect their tissues from the slow burn of time. This balance between tolerance and control may be one of the keys to their extraordinary lifespans. Energy use, too, is part of the story. Though bats can be highly active during flight, their ability to enter states of torpor, lowering body temperature and metabolism for hours or days, gives them a rhythm of rest that protects against wear. By alternating between high-energy bursts and long, restorative stillness, they conserve energy and reduce the oxidative stress that shortens lives in other animals of their size. The scale of their longevity becomes clear in the records. One tiny bat from Siberia, weighing less than a coin, was found to have lived for more than 40 years. Another species, the Brandt's bat, has similar records, enduring through long winters of hibernation and summers of flight. These are not isolated cases, but examples of a broader truth. Bats live far beyond the expectations of their size, rewriting the rules that link body mass and lifespan. For scientists, bats have become models of healthy aging. Their DNA repair systems, their resistance to inflammation, and their ability to manage energy and stress offer clues that could one day inform human medicine. They suggest that aging is not only a matter of size or metabolism, but also of biology's hidden adjustments, the quiet refinements that allow some creatures to live long where others fade quickly. And so, as bats sweep silently through the night, their wings tracing arcs across the stars, they embody a story of survival and endurance. In their small bodies lies a lifespan that rivals animals many times larger, proof that nature often hides its most surprising secrets in the unlikeliest of places. And while these winged mammals stretch their lives through mechanisms of repair and resilience, beneath the waves there are creatures just as remarkable, able to grow back entire limbs or even whole bodies, finding their own way of resisting the passage of time. Along the rocky coasts, where tides wash in and out, sea stars spread their arms across the seafloor like living jewels. Their bodies, covered in tiny spines, move slowly on hundreds of tube feet that grip the stone with delicate strength. They may appear fragile, lying open and exposed to waves and predators, yet within them lies one of the most extraordinary powers in the animal kingdom. A sea star can lose an arm to injury or attack and grow it back, not in days or weeks, but over months and years, replacing what was lost until its body is whole again. In some cases, a single severed arm can regrow into an entirely new sea star, carrying on life as though nothing had been broken. This ability is rooted in their biology. Sea stars belong to a group of animals called echinoderms, which also includes sea urchins and brittle stars. Unlike mammals, their bodies are not centralized around a single brain or a single organ that dictates survival. Instead, their systems are distributed. Nerves stretch into each arm, coordinating movement and sensing the world. Their digestive system can extend outside their body, allowing them to feed in ways other creatures cannot. Most importantly, their regenerative cells are spread throughout their tissues, holding the potential to rebuild not only arms, but sometimes entire bodies. Regeneration is not simply the repair of a wound, it is a reconstruction, a process that requires stem cells to multiply and form new muscle, nerve, and connective tissue. In sea stars, this ability is so well developed that an arm left with a fragment of the central disc can become a new individual. This redundancy is a powerful survival strategy. Even when attacked by predators, they do not necessarily lose their lives. Instead, they shed what is damaged and begin again, continuing their existence while slowly rebuilding what was taken. Such resilience contributes to their remarkable longevity. While sea stars do not live for centuries like clams or sponges, many species show low rates of senescence, meaning they do not age in the same way most animals do. They continue to reproduce and repair themselves throughout their lives, with no obvious decline until external forces such as disease or predation intervene. Their bodies resist the steady breakdown that defines aging in mammals. This resistance is not immortality, but it allows them to stretch their years far longer than one might expect for such delicate-looking creatures. Part of their survival lies in their ability to live with risk, spread across multiple arms. Each arm contains elements of the nervous and circulatory system, so the loss of one does not mean the loss of the whole. This design of redundancy ensures that no single injury is fatal unless the central disc is destroyed entirely. For a creature that moves slowly and is vulnerable to predators like fish, crabs, or birds, this strategy offers a chance to endure. Rather than avoiding injury altogether, sea stars have adapted to withstand it, to transform damage into renewal. Their role in the ecosystem makes their longevity even more significant. Sea stars are keystone predators in many coastal habitats. By feeding on mussels and other shellfish, they control populations that might otherwise overwhelm the environment. Their presence shapes the balance of life along shorelines, influencing entire communities of species. The endurance of sea stars is not only a story of individual survival, but of the health of the ecosystems they inhabit. Scientists study their regenerative powers with fascination, hoping to uncover clues that might one day inform human medicine. Understanding how sea stars regenerate complex tissues without scarring could help reveal new possibilities for healing in our own species. Their biology suggests that aging and damage need not always lead to decline, that repair can be woven into the very fabric of life. As sea stars rest in tide pools, their arms stretching outward like rays of living light, they embody a rhythm of patience and persistence. The waves may break against the rocks, predators may take their share, yet the sea stars remain, rebuilding themselves piece by piece. In their quiet, deliberate way, They remind us that time can be defied not by speed or strength, but by the capacity to begin again. And beyond them, in the wide sea, there are other animals that resist aging itself, carrying lifespans so steady that mortality seems to skip over them entirely, weaving yet another layer into nature's tapestry of endurance. In the study of life, one of the most universal truths seems to be that everything ages, cells slow down, bodies weaken, and the chances of death increase with every passing year. Yet, in nature, there are creatures that do not appear to follow this path at all. Scientists describe them as showing negligible senescence, a term that means their risk of dying does not increase as they grow older. These animals defy the pattern familiar to us, continuing to reproduce, to heal, and to live as though age has little or no hold on them. The concept itself is striking. In humans, mortality rises steadily with time, and the evidence of age is written across our skin, our bones, and our organs. But in some animals, a century-old individual is biologically no more fragile than one much younger. Their cells retain the ability to divide and repair, their reproductive systems remain active, and their bodies resist the gradual collapse that defines aging elsewhere. For these beings, time does not bring inevitable decline. One of the clearest examples is found in tortoises. These ancient reptiles, with shells that gleam in the sunlight and movements as deliberate as the ticking of a clock, have lifespans that reach beyond 100 years. Some species, like the giant tortoises of the Galapagos and Seychelles, continue to reproduce well into their later decades. Scientists studying their populations have found no sharp increase in mortality with age. Instead, their chances of surviving from one year to the next remain relatively steady. Their slow metabolisms and protective shells reduce external threats, while their biology itself seems resistant to the cellular damage that drives aging in many animals. Hydra, tiny freshwater creatures with slender, tentacle-ringed bodies, offer an even more dramatic case. In laboratory experiments, Hydra have shown no detectable signs of senescence. Their cells are constantly renewed by a supply of stem cells that never seem to lose potency. When a Hydra is cut into pieces, each fragment has the potential to regenerate into a complete new organism. This remarkable capacity allows them to avoid the usual decline that comes with age. While individual Hydra can die from injury or unfavorable conditions, under stable environments, they appear to continue indefinitely, their lifespans theoretically without limit. Certain fish add to this pattern of negligible senescence. Sturgeon, for example, are large, ancient fish that can live for more than a century. They continue to grow throughout their lives, a trait known as indeterminate growth, and they remain fertile even at advanced ages. Rockfish, too, display similar patterns, with individuals surpassing 200 years and still producing viable offspring. In these species, mortality rates remain low and steady, with no sudden rise as age progresses. Why nature sometimes skips aging in these animals remains a question that scientists are still unraveling. One factor is environment. Animals that live in stable, low-risk conditions, such as the deep ocean or within protective shells, face fewer external pressures. They can afford to invest energy not in rapid reproduction, but in maintenance and repair, keeping their bodies functional over long spans of time. Another factor lies in their cellular biology. Many of these animals maintain active stem cells, efficient DNA repair systems, and protective mechanisms that reduce oxidative stress. Where most creatures slowly accumulate damage, these animals seem to avoid or undo it. The implications are profound. Negligible senescence shows that aging is not an unavoidable law of biology, but a process that can vary depending on evolutionary strategies. For some species, growing old is a steady decline. For others, it is simply more of the same, year after year, decade after decade, with no apparent increase in frailty. These creatures invite us to imagine what life might look like if time did not carve its marks so deeply, if vitality could be stretched almost without limit. As tortoises lumber slowly across sunlit islands, as Hydra drift gently in quiet ponds, and as ancient fish glide through cold waters, they carry within them the secrets of lives that slip free from the usual grasp of age. Their stories flow into the larger mystery of why most creatures do grow old and die, and what trade offs in evolution have made senescence the rule rather than the exception. From here, the path leads to the deeper science of aging itself, the reasons why life so often bends toward decline, and the forces that prevent most species from sharing the timeless resilience of these few. All around us, life begins, grows, flourishes, and then fades. From the smallest insect buzzing through a single summer to vast whales that endure for centuries, the pattern is almost universal. Creatures are born, they age, and eventually they die. But why should this be so? If some animals resist aging or live far longer than expected, then why is death such a constant thread through the fabric of life? The science of aging offers answers that are at once deeply biological and profoundly tied to the story of evolution itself. At the cellular level, one of the main actors is the telomere. Telomeres are protective caps at the ends of chromosomes, made of repeating sequences of DNA. Every time a cell divides, these caps become a little shorter, like the ends of a candle slowly burning down. When they grow too short, the cell can no longer divide properly. It enters a state of senescence, alive but no longer contributing to tissue repair. This gradual erosion means that the body's ability to renew itself diminishes with time. In humans and many other animals, this shortening acts as a kind of biological clock, ticking steadily toward the limits of life. But telomeres are not the whole story. DNA itself, the molecule that holds the instructions for life, is constantly under assault. Radiation, toxins, and even the normal process of metabolism damage it again and again. Cells have repair systems, and for most of life they work tirelessly, patching breaks and correcting errors. Over decades, though, these repairs become less efficient. Damage accumulates, leading to mutations or to malfunctions in how cells function. The gradual buildup of this molecular wear is one of the invisible signatures of aging, a slow unraveling written into the very code of life. Another force is oxidative stress. In order to stay alive, cells use oxygen to generate energy. But oxygen is reactive, and its byproducts called free radicals can damage proteins, lipids, and DNA. Normally, antioxidants in the body keep this balance in check. Over time, however, the balance tips, and oxidative damage outpaces repair. It is as if every breath carries not only life, but also the seeds of slow decline. In small doses, oxidative stress may even help cells adapt, but over the long course of years, it becomes one of the quiet drivers of aging. If biology has the means to resist some of these processes, why then do most creatures still die? Evolution offers a powerful explanation. Natural selection favors traits that enhance reproductive success, not necessarily those that prolong life indefinitely. In many species, energy is invested heavily in rapid growth and reproduction rather than in maintenance and repair. A mouse that reproduces quickly, even if it only lives for a year, may pass on its genes more effectively than a mouse that invests in longevity. Immortality is not rewarded if it comes at the cost of fewer offspring. This trade-off between reproduction and immortality shapes much of the living world. Some animals, like Pacific salmon, put all their energy into a single, massive reproductive event, after which their bodies rapidly deteriorate. Others, like elephants, invest in longer lives and extended parental care, but even they do not escape aging entirely. Energy is finite, and evolution pushes it towards strategies that maximize survival of the genes, even if the individual does not endure forever. There is also the matter of ecological balance. If every creature lived without aging, the world would quickly become overcrowded, resources would dwindle, and ecosystems would collapse. Death, as harsh as it may seem, creates space for renewal. It ensures that populations can adapt, that new generations with new variations can rise. Aging and mortality are, in this sense, woven into the design of life, balancing survival with change. Yet the existence of animals that resist aging reminds us that the rules are flexible. Tortoises, Hydra, rockfish, and others reveal that biology can stretch the boundaries of longevity when the environment and evolutionary pressures allow it. Still, for most species, aging remains the norm, a quiet trade that life makes with time. As we trace this science, it becomes clear that death is not a failure of biology, but part of its design. Telomeres shorten, DNA falters, oxidative stress builds, and energy is channeled toward reproduction rather than endless repair. The result is that most creatures die, not because they must, but because nature has chosen this path as the one that sustains life itself. And from this mystery of why life ends, the story turns toward what humans are learning from these patterns and how we may one day seek to shift the balance between aging and endurance. For as long as humans have understood the passing of time, we have searched for ways to slow its grip. Legends speak of fountains of youth. Alchemists once promised elixirs of immortality, and today, science is carrying the search into the hidden workings of our cells. While aging has long been seen as inevitable, the discoveries made from creatures that resist time suggest otherwise. By studying Hydra, jellyfish, naked mole rats, and other animals that defy decline, researchers are uncovering lessons that may one day reshape what it means to grow old. The Hydra, with its endless supply of active stem cells, has shown scientists that cellular renewal need not fade with age. Unlike in humans, where stem cells gradually lose their power, Hydra maintain a constant pool of these regenerative cells, rebuilding tissues indefinitely. This discovery has inspired research into how human stem cells might be preserved or reawakened, offering the possibility of slowing the deterioration of muscles, skin, and organs. If the mechanisms that keep Hydra youthful can be understood, they may guide therapies that extend vitality in people. The immortal jellyfish, capable of reverting from adulthood back to its earliest life stage, has pushed curiosity even further. While humans cannot reset their lives in the same way, this jellyfish demonstrates that life cycles can be rewritten at the cellular level. Scientists are now exploring the molecular switches that control development and renewal, hoping to uncover methods to reverse cellular aging. Though we cannot fold back into childhood, understanding the jellyfish may reveal ways to rejuvenate our tissues and keep them functioning far longer than they do now. Naked mole rats provide yet another model. These small mammals live up to 10 times longer than similar-sized rodents, resisting cancer and age-related decline with unusual efficiency. Their cells are extraordinarily resistant to damage, and they maintain stable proteins and DNA repair mechanisms well into old age. By studying them, researchers have identified unique genetic pathways and molecules that shield against the diseases most humans eventually face. If these protective systems can be imitated or introduced into human biology, they may one day guard us from the frailty that comes with advanced years. Beyond studying animals, science is already testing methods to extend human health. Gene editing has opened the possibility of altering the very instructions within our DNA. Tools like CRISPR allow researchers to adjust or repair genes linked to aging, and some experiments focus on activating or silencing those that influence longevity. Telomerase therapy is another promising path. By extending the protective telomeres at the ends of chromosomes, cells may regain the ability to divide and repair themselves for longer periods. Early studies have shown potential in restoring tissue function, though the balance is delicate, since uncontrolled cell growth can also lead to cancer. Caloric restriction has offered further insights. In countless studies on mice, worms, and even primates, reducing calories without malnutrition has been shown to extend lifespan and delay age-related disease. The mechanism seems to lie in reducing metabolic stress, lowering the production of damaging free radicals, and activating survival pathways in the body. While strict restriction is difficult for humans, research is exploring compounds that mimic these effects without the hardship of permanent dietary limits. Substances like resveratrol and rapamycin are being investigated for their ability to switch on the same pathways of resilience seen in animals under caloric restriction. All of these approaches are converging on a single question: how close are we to slowing or even reversing aspects of human aging? At present, the breakthroughs remain at the edge of possibility. Some therapies are still confined to laboratories and animal trials, while others are entering cautious human testing. The goal is not immortality, but the extension of health, to live longer without the burden of decline. Scientists speak of health span rather than lifespan, aiming to expand the years when bodies remain strong and minds remain clear. The promise is extraordinary, but so are the challenges. Human biology is complex, and the lessons from Hydra, jellyfish, and mole rats cannot be copied directly. Still, their existence proves that aging is not a fixed law. It is a process, and processes can be altered. Each discovery opens new doors, showing us that nature has already written many versions of life's story, some that resist time far better than we do. From these lessons, humanity is slowly learning how to bend the rules of aging, not to escape death entirely, but perhaps to walk more gently and for longer across the span of life. And as we look to these possibilities, the final reflections return us to the creatures that began this journey, whose defiance of death reminds us of both the limits and the mysteries of being alive. As we drift back from the long journey through Earth's strangest survivors, the stories we have explored linger like echoes in the quiet. We have walked among giants of the deep, clams that have endured since empires rose and fell, jellyfish that fold themselves back into youth, and tiny creatures like Hydra that never seem to lose their spark of renewal. We have seen whales that live for centuries, bats that break the rules of their size, tortoises that carry entire histories on their shells, and sponges that have witnessed ice ages come and go while remaining steadfast in the dark. Each one of them reminds us that life does not follow a single path. The Greenland shark swims slowly through Arctic waters, born before Newton put words to gravity, its body carrying centuries with ease. The immortal jellyfish rewrites its own story, moving backward when time seems to push it forward. Hydra, simple and small, remain untouched by age, while sea stars and planarians rebuild themselves from fragments, shaping new life from what was broken. These beings do not simply survive. They bend the very rules that bind most of us, showing that death is not the same inevitability for all. And beyond the sea, on land and in the air, the lessons continue. Naked mole rats live far longer than any rodent should, their bodies resisting the cancers that trouble other mammals. Parrots and albatrosses carry their voices and wings across generations, outliving entire human lifetimes. Even in the tiniest of creatures, from tardigrades to rotifers, there is a resilience that seems unshakable, enduring space, radiation, or tens of thousands of frozen years. The diversity of strategies is endless, yet the result is always the same, a defiance of time itself. Perhaps the most haunting thought is that aging, which feels so inevitable to us, is not universal. In some of these creatures, mortality does not increase with age. They remain as strong, as fertile, and as capable as they were long before. Scientists call this negligible senescence, but to us, it looks like something else, a kind of immortality, a whisper that death is not always the final word. Perhaps death is not an end, but a rule that some creatures never agreed to follow. The science behind these mysteries continues to grow, from the length of telomeres to the power of stem cells, from the slow beating of cold water hearts to the genetic defenses that ward off disease. Researchers are uncovering not just how these creatures live so long, but why they do. And each discovery feeds into our own search, not for eternal life, but for healthier years, for ways to walk further into old age with strength and clarity. The secrets of sponges, clams, jellyfish, and mole rats are not just curiosities, they are guideposts, pointing us toward what might one day be possible for ourselves. As this gentle exploration comes to a close, the stories of these animals remain. They are testaments to the vast creativity of nature, reminders that life has never been bound by a single pattern. Where we see limits, evolution finds another way. Where we accept decline, some creatures choose renewal, and as we reflect on them, we may find not only wonder but also comfort, knowing that the rules we live by are not the only rules that exist. If you have found a sense of peace or fascination in wandering through these lives with me tonight, I would love to know. Perhaps leave a gentle comment sharing where you are listening from or what time it is where you are now. It is always a quiet joy to see how far these stories travel. If you would like to continue exploring more of nature's mysteries in this soft and soothing way, a like or a subscription helps others find this same corner of calm. Now, as we leave these creatures to their seas, their skies, and their hidden worlds, let their stories rest with you. The Greenland shark still swims, the Hydra still renews itself, the tortoise still grazes, and the sponge still filters the deep water. Their lives stretch beyond imagination, timeless threads woven into Earth's tapestry, and perhaps, in listening, you carry a piece of that timelessness too.